You and I are about to watch Ash, a legendary knight, take down 200 monsters all by himself. After years of serving the Emperor, he was betrayed and dumped like trash. Even his girl left him. Life was brutal. Exiled to a lawless land, Ash had to survive alone. In a world where absolute strength is worshipped, he transformed into a genius swordsman. Monster nests, known as dungeons, started popping up everywhere across the entire globe. Deep inside these labyrinths, lethal creatures are born, bringing nothing but total destruction to humanity. The damage is catastrophic. Amidst the carnage, terrified citizens scramble to escape the incoming slaughter. To protect the innocent, knights charge into the fray. In this desperate hour, the world is begging for a hero. On the Empire's edge, a village lies in ruins. There, a massive wolf corners a helpless woman and her child. The beast unhinges its jaw, lunging forward to tear those defenseless people apart. Suddenly, a hand grips a blade. A mysterious warrior leaps in, cutting down the giant beast in a flash. He steps closer, checking if the woman is okay before regrouping with his elite unit of knights. He tells the survivors to leave the rest to his squad, introducing himself as their captain. With a sharp command, he orders his team to wipe out every monster in sight. Suddenly, a monstrous wolf sprints toward the captain. He stands his ground, bracing for the heavy impact. He draws his sword in a blur, blocking the beast's lethal lunge at the very last second. After slaying the wolf, a winged nightmare drops from the sky to strike him down. The creature shrieks, diving straight for him. It slams into the dirt, barely missing as he rolls away. He gains some distance, spotting a simple farm rake leaning against a nearby wall. He snatches up the tool, ready to use it as a deadly makeshift weapon. Now watch this, he leaps into the air and hurls that rake with so much power it pierces straight through the monster's body. He watches the beast fall, checking his kill while the battle rages on all around him. One of his knights grunts that these damn things just keep coming. The captain shouts to check on his team, yelling that they can't lose this village. Hearing his roar, the two knights turn back, ready to fight until the end. The whole squad charges into the horde together. After a brutal fight, they finally rest under the moonlight. Exhausted, he wonders if it's finally over. But then, a massive shadow looms over the entire ground. The team looks up instantly, realizing a new, much bigger threat has arrived. A colossal serpent emerges from the dark. Ash just sighs, noting that a big one finally showed up. You and I saw this coming. The beast preps a massive fire attack. The serpent blasts the squad with flames. Ash crosses his arms, tanking the heat head-on. He stands firm through the fire, then leaps straight into the monster's gaping maw. The serpent snaps its jaws shut, trapping the captain completely inside its throat. He uses raw strength to pry the jaws open. Seeing the danger, the squad's archer screams his name. She draws her bow, aiming for the head, then fires and leaps back to safety. The arrow pierces the giant reptile's eye, forcing its mouth open so the captain can escape. Landing on his feet, he thanks her, admitting she really saved his skin that time. He turns back to the beast, charging forward to deliver one final, devastating blow. With a guttural yell, he pours every ounce of his power into his blade. Spinning mid-air, he shears through the serpent's neck before walking away from the corpse. The villagers watch from the shadows, finally erupting into cheers for their survival. The great outbreak was finally over, with all the credit going to the 13th squad. But Captain Ash's feats were the most insane part of the entire victory. He soloed over 200 monsters. Naturally, his team celebrates the impossible win with him. Because of his terrifying strength, he ended up earning a legendary new nickname. And that's where we leave it in the Grand Throne Room, where the king is about to honor Ash's incredible power. You and I are about to watch one of the wildest betrayal stories ever told. Accepting the honor, he bows to the king. He exits the chamber through the hall to thunderous applause. His friends can't believe it, an unprecedented promotion. The commoner captain is officially a nobleman. Smiling, he drops another bombshell: he is getting engaged soon. His comrades are frozen in total shock. One friend begs him to turn it down, but he refuses the request. His fiancée is the second daughter of House Reagan. As a minor noble, he simply could not say no. Trying to keep his friend calm, he says everything happened so fast, but he assures her that despite the chaos, it is all for the best. Everything in his life feels perfect. He raises a glass, ready for a future filled with glory. 3 years later, he asks for clarification. She cold stares him down, repeating her harsh words. Standing tall, she declares their engagement is officially over. Now pay attention, because this is where his perfect life starts to crumble. A commander points a finger, yelling that he is expelled. He is desperate to understand this sudden decision. We see him working tirelessly, buying her gifts and changing his entire life for her. She is just sick of him. She reveals she has already found someone from a count's family. He cannot believe it is ending like this. He rushes toward her, screaming that he won't accept it. He protests, reminding her that her own father was the one who pushed for this. Offended, she snaps her fan shut and warns him never to insult her father again. She orders the guards to toss him out. They grab his arms, dragging him away. He begs her to listen as he is hauled off. She just says she never wants to see him. The scene shifts to the city streets, with the distant castle looming behind him. Walking alone, the whole situation feels wrong. Why would House Reagan break the deal like this? Suddenly, a voice calls his name from across the busy street. Knights order him to report to the barracks. There, his superior, Mike, kicks him out of the order. He is completely blindsided. Shocked, he yells back, demanding to know what is going on. Mike calls him a nuisance and a direct threat to his own military position. And there it is. The moment you and I realize just how rigged this whole game really was. Does Mike hate him for rising so high? Mike just sneers, asking what he is looking at. Toying with his metal, Mike says commoner nobles are irritating. That monster incident? Totally overrated. Thinking of his fallen comrades, he takes the insults in silence. He snaps. Lunging forward, he grabs his superior by the collar with pure fury in his eyes. Mike doesn't blink. He threatens to have all of the man's friends kicked out too. That stops him cold. His hand trembles as he slowly lets go of Mike's collar. Mike mocks him, asking if he finally understands the gap in their status. Snatching the metal, Mike decides to teach him a lesson. He drops it and crushes it underfoot. He sneers that bloodline is something a lowly commoner will never, ever possess. Mike gives the final order to leave. He packs his bags while other knights whisper in the shadows. With his head hung low, he walks away, leaving his life as a knight behind. He arrives at the supply room and knocks. He is there to return all his official gear. The clerk calls him the infamous expelled knight. Confused, he asks what that is supposed to mean. Apparently, word is he tried to pressure his fiancée. The rumor says he forced her into a twisted game, and Mike had to save her. Leaving, he screams that it is a sick joke. He punches a wall, roaring Mike's name. He cannot believe Mike would spread such a disgusting, baseless lie. Trust me, after losing everything, he is coming back for it all. You and I won't want to miss that. Alright, stick with me. We start as Ash's Jr. catches up, asking if he's really leaving. Meet Ulrika, the lone noble in the 13th Night Squad. Catching up, he clarifies he wasn't leaving, he was canned. She screams that she still needs his help leading the squad. Seeing her break down, he just stands there, speechless. Flashbacks remind him she was basically the squad mascot. Her desperate shouting clearly catches him off guard. She blurts out that if he wanted to play hard to get, he should have just asked. He yells back that the rumors are totally insane. She panics, wondering what happens to the Janus squad without him. Now watch this. We're heading back 3 years to when this village was first being rebuilt. A fellow knight complains that our guy was the only one who got a medal for the battle. His friend says the Empire ignores the dungeon threats, but Ash steps in to change the mood. Trying to lift their spirits, he tells them protecting the village and its people is what truly matters. He says they should be proud, even if those arrogant nobles never recognize them. Sparked by an idea, he suggests they name their squad and asks his friend for a suggestion. They choose Janus, after an ancient god. Everyone loves it, and their unit finally has a real identity. He proudly declares them the Janus Squad. Back now, he promises to always be a member of that team. That's never going to change, no matter where he ends up in the world. His teammate asks about his next move. Tired of noble drama, he's thinking of leaving the country entirely. She grabs him, yelling she'll follow him anywhere. Gently, he asks her to stay and protect the squad. Hearing his final request, she simply nods, accepting his decision. She begs him to write once he settles down. He waves goodbye as she keeps shouting about that promise. Once he's out of sight, she just stares down the path he took with a soft smile. Elsewhere, he officially dumps his near-noble status. Tossing the medal, he announces he's just Ash from now on. Reaching the station, he stretches and sighs. Honestly, he feels completely refreshed. Clutching a travel guide, the weight finally lifts. With a grin, he's ready for a fresh start. Soon, the train begins rolling down the Imperial tracks. Inside, he finally finds a seat to relax. Suddenly, a mysterious man slides open the cabin door. Without a word, he walks straight toward our hero. Stopping right there, he asks for a moment. Surprised by the intrusion, Ash asks who the man is. It's been a while since leaving the Empire. Looking out, he's amazed by this magical train. An old man approaches, asking for a second of his time. Confused, Ash asks who he is. Showing him a brochure, the man asks if he dropped it, then asks if it's his first visit. Ash wonders how he knew, and the man admits it was just pure curiosity. He says only the rich ride trains back home, but here, it's just a normal way to travel. Turns out, this kingdom is light years ahead in magical tech. Now, pay attention here. You and I are about to see exactly why this kingdom is so legendary. Mages here summon fire and water instantly. They even use legendary healing arts to fix up the wounded. They even build magical tools from literal monster parts. These tools changed everything, making life prosperous. Through research, Rosebell just kept evolving faster and faster. Now, the entire world knows them as the magical superpower. Comparing the two, he realizes the Empire is totally backwards. Suddenly, they announce they're approaching the dungeon city. The train finally pulls into the station, ending his long, tiring journey. Stepping off, he follows the man who helped him. They chat as they walk through the bustling streets. A carriage is already waiting to take them further. Ash shakes his hand, thanking him for the help. The man finally welcomes him to Rosebell. With a huge smile, Ash just says yes. Entering the city, the sheer scale of this dungeon hub is incredible. Walking the market, he's stunned by the magical items. It's a massive trade center, overflowing with energy. So what do you and I take from this? Ash is finally finding his true freedom. Alright, stick with me because our hero just stumbled into a desperate situation. A woman races down a street, and Ash is completely caught off guard. Right on her heels, thugs scream for her to stop. She ducks into a side street only to find herself trapped in a dead-end alley. The gang's leader corners her, offering a terrifying invitation to have some fun. Paralyzed with fear, she can only refuse. But out of nowhere, Ash appears and firmly grips the leader's shoulder. He casually mentions the man has clearly had too much to drink. Annoyed, the drunkard snaps at him to mind his own business. Livid, the thug tells him to shut up and throws a heavy punch. Ash slips the blow with ease, evading the attack completely. In one fluid motion, he counters with a brutal strike right to the stomach. The force sends the leader flying as he screams in pain. Seeing their boss down, the rest of the cronies prepare to swarm him together. Two men charge with a roar of rage. As Ash dodges, he notices their movements are actually quite well trained. He figures that is just life in a dungeon city. With a lightning-fast kick, he connects with one of them. The man is sent crashing through the alley with massive force. The final thug freezes in place, gripped by pure terror. Before he can move, Ash lands a solid punch straight to his jaw. With all three neutralized, the alleyway brawl finally settles down. Now pay attention here, Ash cracks his knuckles, but the thug is not done. He rises and draws a blade in a blind fury. Pointing the sword, he screams that he will never forgive this. Ash just asks why he is pulling steel in the street. The man leaps forward, swearing to end his life. Suddenly, a knight appears, shouting for the violence to cease. He says he cannot ignore a duel in his city. Ash looks up and immediately recognizes his old friend, Bale Baron. He greets him with a grin, and Bale orders his men to arrest the thugs. Years ago, these two were fierce rivals, clashing in every tournament. Their scores were dead even, locked in a permanent tie. They were rivals who respected each other. Back in the present, they share a toast to celebrate this totally unexpected reunion. Bale explains he only came to the alley because of a report. He takes a sip and asks Ash what brings him here. Ash prepares to spill the whole story. After hearing the tale, Bale admits it was a rough situation. Ash admits he is still fuming about it. Bale gets a sudden idea, suggesting Ash start a brand new life right here. Ash just stares, completely lost. You saw that coming, right? He suggests Ash become a professional dungeon hunter. Confused, Ash repeats the title, wondering what that even means. Bale explains it involves clearing monsters out of dungeons. He adds that Ash could earn a fortune doing it. He is genuinely excited to have his old rival join up. Suddenly, a frantic knight bursts into the room with emergency news. A massive monster outbreak just hit the city dungeon. Ash echoes the words, trying to process the sudden threat. The subordinate confirms the Hunter Association has already been alerted. Bale turns to Ash, extending a hand for an invitation. He asks his old rival to step up and fight beside him. During an outbreak, monsters flood the streets and attack anything that moves. They will not stop until everything in sight is completely destroyed. Ash realizes they need to clear the threat before people get hurt. He accepts the proposal, ready for battle once again. They shake hands, reuniting as brothers in arms. Moments later, they arrive at the gates of the kingdom's Hunter Association. Inside, hunters are already gathering, waiting for the knights to lead. A knight announces that Captain Bale has finally arrived. A hunter steps forward, asking if there is any new intel. The command room is pure chaos, showing just how bad things have gotten. Bale heads to the desk, demanding a full report. The receptionist warns there are 100 monsters on the 10th floor. Bale realizes this will become a major disaster very soon. He introduces Ash to the skeptical staff. They question the move, noting Ash is neither a knight nor a certified hunter. Other hunters ask about his experience. Bale assures everyone that Ash is more than capable of handling himself. Trust me, you and I are watching as they rush to the dungeon. Alright, you and I are heading to the entrance of the city's second dungeon, where Bale offers some top-tier gear to get our hero ready. He picks out a light breastplate and a sword, but Bale isn't handing over any old blade. He places a literal magic sword onto the table. When asked what makes it special, Bale explains it's a perfect fusion of high-end technology. Bale pulls out a stone, explaining the sword has special functions built right in. He takes the gem and prepares to slot it into the hilt. He snaps the magic stone into its designated slot on the weapon. Just holding it, he's already blown away by the sword's raw power. With a grin, Bale says that magic stone just boosted the sword's cutting power significantly. He explains that magic gear can trigger all kinds of crazy effects. Now fully geared up, the group heads into the dungeon. Descending to the very first floor, they push forward into the pitch-black dungeon corridors. They hit the second floor and just keep diving deeper. Bale mentions that they've already set up a heavy barricade right before the third-floor stairs. On the third floor, they find a layout that looks totally different from anything they've seen before. Bale explains that dungeons are packed with mysteries waiting to be solved. Pointing ahead, he says they'll form their units right there. Suddenly, something starts slamming against that wooden barricade. "Watch this," he screams a warning, because the monsters are already here. He shouts to his allies, and the entire group rushes forward to meet the monsters head-on. The barricade is completely pulverized by the monsters' sheer force. On the other side, a pack of massive, aggressive gorillas is ready to kill. Bale roars out that their heads are their only weak point. Right on cue, one of the giant apes lets out a scream and charges with everything it's got. Tracking the attack, he casually notes that these things aren't actually that fast. He dodges and cleaves the monster's head off in one clean motion. The other hunters can't believe how easy he made that look. He looks down at his blade, shocked by how effortlessly it sliced through that thick hide. Laughing, Bale asks if he's enjoying the magic sword. Our hero realizes that with this weapon, he doesn't even need to aim for weak spots. He strikes again, splitting another gorilla in half without breaking a sweat. After the hit, he just stares at the carnage on the ground. Even after being sliced open, the beast is still alive, desperately dragging itself across the floor. Suddenly, the gorilla springs back up for another lunge. He slashes again, realizing these monsters just won't stay down for good. Bale warns him that these specific monsters are special and incredibly stubborn when it comes to dying. So he charges in, finishing the beast with a flurry of brutal punches and kicks. He dodges another swipe, ready to dice this giant up. With a final shout, he delivers a massive blow that finally puts the creature in the dirt. Nearby, Bale is holding his own, yelling that their hides are worth a fortune. Apparently, nobles love using these pelts for their expensive clothes. Watching the chaos, the hunters admit these gorillas are no joke. You and I have to wonder, who is this helper fighting so well? Just then, one knight remembers a legendary name, Ash, the ultimate monster exterminator. That was the legendary knight who crushed a whole outbreak by himself. He supposedly took down over 200 monsters single-handedly during the last invasion. Completely stunned, the hunters say that a feat like that puts him at hero status. The knight claims he's on the same level as the 10 swords. As Ash keeps fighting, some of the group wonder what that title even means. The knight explains that the 10 swords is the absolute highest honor a warrior can achieve. He nods, pulling off his helmet to reveal his face. He admits that every single knight dreams of earning that prestigious title. Rushing through the dungeon, he yells out that his friend seems to have gotten much stronger. He shouts back, saying he's much more powerful than he was a year ago. Fighting side by side, they start clearing every monster in sight. He turns his head, asking if his friend really thinks he's improved that much. With a smile, he says this makes him want Ash to become a hunter even more. Standing over the corpses, they check if they're all gone. Seeing the pile of bodies, the hunters realize these two just wiped out 300 giant monsters. They realize they barely had to lift a finger. Back at the association, the receptionist gets ready to announce their massive reward. With huge excitement, she reveals that the total payout is a whopping 600,000 coins. Bale explains that a top-tier hunter can always pull in that kind of cash. With a wink, he decides it's time to make it official. Looking him dead in the eye, he asks if he'll finally become a hunter. The receptionist practically begs him to accept the deal. After thinking it over, he reaches out his hand and finally announces that he's going to become a legendary hunter. With the decision finally made, everyone at the association starts celebrating the great news with pure joy. Bale calls for a welcome party to celebrate this new beginning. Stick with me, we're about to see things get even wilder from here. Alright, stick with me as we head back to the Imperial Knights headquarters later. There, a colleague hands Ulrika a postcard that just arrived. She takes the mail and gives her a simple thanks. Looking at the card, she tries to guess exactly who could have sent her this message. Turning away, she lets out a soft laugh and touches her face. She is finally meeting her senior. Back in her room, Ulrika celebrates while holding the card he sent her. She notes he seems to be doing great. Looking closer, she realizes it came from the Rosebell kingdom. Suddenly, her friends walk in and notice how happy she looks. She turns and greets them back. Caught off guard, she asks if they have finally finished their training session for the day. Her friend flops on the couch, complaining that things just are not the same. While serving water, she reveals Ash is now a hunter. She explains a letter arrived with all the news. Her friend wonders if being a hunter actually pays. Handing over the drinks, She says the letter confirms the pay is actually quite good. A friend admits work seems easier over there. He adds that being in the 13th squad is basically a joke. Suddenly, she drops a bomb. She is leaving the order. They ask if she is chasing Ash, and she confirms. One friend reveals he was thinking of quitting, too. Another sighs, saying the squad is about to get boring. Watch this now, she is determined to become a dungeon hunter herself. Ulrika looks a bit annoyed hearing that. Her friend then asks exactly where Ash is staying in the kingdom. With a grin, she says he is in the second dungeon city. He wants to go later, but she refuses. He explains that he needs to clear it with his family first. They say their goodbyes as the 13th squad officially disbands. Meanwhile, Ash heads to the Hunters Association. The receptionist, beaming, greets him as Mr. Ash. She asks if he is finally here to officially register. She excitedly tells him that his performance in the dungeon was nothing short of incredible. Introducing herself as May, she hands over a form and says she looks forward to working together. He fills out the paperwork and hands it back. Smiling, she tells him to wait while she registers him. A few minutes later, she returns holding a box with his brand new hunter license. Now pay attention here, he has to show this license every time he enters. She adds that all monster materials must be turned in. He just smiles and jokes about not making a coat out of pelts. With a serious gesture, she warns that hunters are not allowed to renounce their citizenship. He asks about traveling, but she advises against it. Finally, she welcomes him to the association. Holding the license, he thanks her and promises to give it his absolute best effort. Later, he returns to the second dungeon entrance. He stands there, ready to face whatever is inside. A guard asks if he is entering. He says yes while handing over his license for a check. After confirming the registration, the guard steps aside and tells him to head into the dungeon. Suddenly, another hunter bumps into him, making him stumble. His license slips out and hits the ground. The hunter picks it up and offers a quick apology for being so careless. Then, the man spots the beginner mark. He warns Ash to stay on lower floors so he does not die. Watching the group walk away, Ash wonders what their problem was. Adjusting his gloves, he says his career is finally starting. He draws his sword and steps inside. On the first floor, he decides to move at his own pace. Suddenly, he senses a monster nearby. In the distance, two young hunters are celebrating because they found a magic stone. Approaching them, he asks what they are up to. One youth grins, saying they are just fishing for slimes. The young man explains his trick, throwing vegetables into the water to lure the monsters out. Right on cue, a slime wobbles over to eat the bait. The hunter quickly pulls it from the water. With one quick thrust of his sword, he pierces the core and finishes off the monster. He explains it is an easy way to get magic stones. Slimes are perfect for earning extra cash. You and I can see these monsters are not strong, but the young man suggests he should head down to floor 10. Stick with me, let's see if this rookie survives his first run. Reaching out, the young hunter demands a steep fee for the intel provided. Our protagonist pays up, waving goodbye while feeling a little bit embarrassed. He mutters to himself that he got played by that kid after all. Ignoring the scam, he pushes toward the next floor, hyped to fight some real monsters. The scene shifts, and those arrogant hunters are now in deep trouble. Their leader screams, absolutely terrified by the massive swarm surrounding them. With their escape blocked, they are completely trapped by monsters on every side. Reaching the fourth floor, everything changes. He realizes this dungeon reshapes itself every time you descend. Looking up, he sees a wide-open sky, deep underground. Then, a rustle comes from the tall grass. A small, cute creature pops out. It turns around, totally unaware it is being watched. Suddenly, the rabbit lunges, horn first. He dodges, striking back while remembering this thing is still a monster. After a quick victory, he celebrates his very first dungeon kill. He pulls out a book, trying to name the beast he just took down. It is a horned rabbit, living up to the name. Kneeling, he harvests the horn and magic stone, tucking them into his small inventory bag. The bag is huge inside, but the monster loot? Worth almost nothing. Pretty disappointing for a first hunt. He decides that grinding these weaklings is a total waste of time. Wait, he turns around to find a massive horde of them. Now he is running for his life. After a few close calls, he finally reaches the 9th floor. On floor 10, things are peaceful as he passes other hunters. By floor 13, he is deep in the belly of the beast. As he walks, he wonders what kind of environment is waiting for him next. Now pay attention, a desperate scream echoes from deep in the cave. He starts sprinting toward the sound. He finds the hunters being slaughtered by the undead. It is that same group from the dungeon entrance. A skeleton warrior raises its blade to finish off the group leader. Rushing in, he screams for them to watch out. He barely blocks the strike, saving the hunter just in time. The stunned hunter asks if he is okay. He nods, drawing his weapon to face the skeleton warrior head-on. He aims for the weakness the hunter mentioned, striking with enough force to shatter the skeleton's entire body. Even with its bones smashed, the undead monster keeps crawling forward. Is the head the real weak point? He brings his sword down, crushing the skull in one blow. He lets out a long breath, thinking the battle is finally over. Suddenly, the stone in its chest starts glowing. Before his eyes, the skeleton begins to fully rebuild itself. I know what you're thinking, is this thing immortal? A hunter shouts that he has to crush the magic stone. That chest stone is the key. The skeleton lunges again, swinging its rusted blade with murderous intent. With a lightning-fast move, he evades the strike and prepares his counter. Dropping low, he prepares his final strike. He hammers a precise punch directly into the monster's chest. With his other hand, he rips the glowing core right out. Holding the stone high, the skeleton crumbles into dust. Without that magic core, the undead is nothing but bone. He turns to face the remaining skeletons with a confident smirk. Now he knows the secret. He lunges forward, striking the next skeleton's core with clinical precision. In a blur of motion, he shatters another core. Within seconds, the entire room is cleared of undead. The fight is over. He exhales, wiping the sweat from his exhausted face. The hunters approach him, grateful for the rescue. Their leader realizes this is the rookie from the entrance. Apologizing, the leader admits he was wrong about the young man's strength. He explains the dungeon was quiet until now. In a flashback, we see them descending further down. Skeleton warriors suddenly ambush them from the shadows, giving them no time to react. Their friend Sammy took the brunt of the attack and was badly hurt. They tried fighting back, but it was hopeless. Trust me, you and I just witnessed a close call. They were no match, and now they must save their injured friend. Alright, you and I are diving into the middle of a literal survival nightmare. Suddenly, a chilling sound from the darkness puts everyone on edge. Emerging from the shadows, a massive horde of skeletons begins their slow, terrifying march toward the group. One of the hunters screams out a warning, shouting that even more enemies are joining the slaughter. Glancing back, he realizes their situation is beyond hope. The female hunter screams for him to watch his back as the monsters close in. He spins around, caught off guard by the sudden and frantic warning he just received. A massive wave of skeletons lunges forward, charging at them with zero hesitation. In one fluid motion, he shatters a magic stone, but the other skeletons just keep regenerating and rising again. That is when the realization hits. He needs to crush those stones if he wants them to stay dead. He bellows at the other hunters, telling them to grab their wounded friend and run for their lives. With a heavy swing, he smashes another magic stone to dust. He then kicks the monster aside, forcing a narrow path open for the group to escape. There are just too many of them. He grinds his teeth, frustrated that he can't get a clear shot at their stones. Pay attention here, because with enemies on every side, this is where things get truly desperate. A sudden spark of hope hits him as he remembers an item from earlier. We see a flashback of him buying a new sword and a sturdy chest plate. After suiting up, he says his gear is finally perfect. The blacksmith then tosses him a smoke bomb as a little free gift. He takes the item, doubting it would be any use in a real fight. Back in the present, he is frantically digging for that smoke bomb. A grin spreads across his face as he finally finds it. With no other options left, he decides he has to put the item to the test. Leaping high into the air, he hurls the smoke bomb right into the center of the skeleton horde. The bomb strikes a skeleton and explodes, flooding the entire cave with thick, heavy smoke. The hunters watch in silence, wondering if this will actually stop the undead. Staring into the gray mist, he shouts, praying the item does exactly what the blacksmith promised. Inside the thick cloud, the skeletons have stopped moving entirely. Seeing the miracle, the hunters start cheering, calling the move absolutely incredible. He doesn't waste a second, yelling for everyone to get out of the cave as fast as possible. Carrying their wounded comrade, the party takes their only chance to run. Stopping to catch their breath, he hopes the monsters won't follow them. He looks at the deep wound, admitting the hunter might actually lose his arm. He quickly wraps a tight bandage around it to keep him from bleeding out. Grabbing a potion, he shouts at the injured man to open his mouth. He then pours every last drop of the healing liquid down the hunter's throat. After a few tense minutes, the bleeding finally slows down and they prepare to move again. Finally, back at the association, they scramble inside with the dying hunter. He bursts out of the dungeon, screaming for someone to call a doctor immediately. Inside the medical wing, the hunter is quickly loaded onto a stretcher and rushed away for surgery. Slumping onto a couch, he sighs, knowing he did everything in his power. The group leader approaches him, offering a sincere apology and a reward for his help. He turns it down, saying it's only natural to help others in danger. An hour later, the doctor finally emerges to find the group still waiting. He tells them straight up that without that potion, their friend would be a dead man. Unfortunately, it was too late to save the arm. Hearing the news, Ash suggests finding him a new job he can do with just one hand. Watching their deep bond makes him feel a bit envious. You and I can understand that, right? In a flashback, he remembers his old friends. A month later, a waitress asks why he still hasn't joined a new hunting party yet. 2 hunters try to recruit him, but he tells them he's doing just fine on his own. One asks if he really rejected the famous Golden Night party. He just scoffs, complaining about how arrogant that party's leader was when he asked him to join. Suddenly, a hunter announces that a named monster has been spotted in the dungeon. He asks what that means, and the hunter explains the danger. He goes on to explain that a headless horseman, a Dullahan, has been spotted roaming the depths. They warn him to stay away since named monsters are on a whole different level. Suddenly, a woman enters the bar, stealing everyone's focus. One of the men mutters about how beautiful she is, and the entire room silently agrees. She walks through the bar, ignoring the stares of every man there. The hunters try to invite him one last time, but he gives them the same cold refusal. Just then, the woman sneaks up and covers his eyes, asking him to guess who she is. Confused and not recognizing the voice, he slowly turns around. His eyes go wide as he recognizes her, shouting her name, Olga, in complete and utter shock. With a massive smile, she says she's finally found her senpai. That night, the two of them sit down to catch up at a quiet cafe. Sitting across from her, he asks what she's doing in the Rosebell kingdom. She smiles back, admitting she traveled all this way just to follow him. When he asks about the knights, she says she resigned. Sipping his coffee, he reminds her that she's from a family of noble barons. She actually cut ties just to find him. Trust me, you and I need to see what's next. Let's dive in. She actually fought her own father just to leave home. She's officially a dungeon hunter now. Hearing this, he just stands there, totally speechless and unsure how to react. She asks if he can handle the work of a hunter and a husband. He finally gathers his courage to ask if she truly likes him. She says yes. And suddenly he realizes that if she is in, he might be falling for her too. A memory of his former fiancée's betrayal flashes through his mind. But with a quick smile, he says it was nothing and pivots to a new topic. Calling out to him, she looks him in the eye with a serious, determined expression. She grabs his hands, calling him a pitiful mess. She's angry, shouting that his ex-fiancé left a deep scar on his soul. Standing up, she vows never to leave her senpai's side. She places a hand over her heart, swearing she will bet her entire life on it. She tells him he's nobody's plaything anymore. Moving closer, she suggests they just keep things exactly as they are right now. He nearly chokes on his drink, wondering if she was always this intense. He tries to pull away, mentioning they should head back. While walking, he asks if she found a place to stay yet. He points out his route, but it turns out they are walking in the exact same direction down the street together. Climbing the stairs, he starts to realize they're heading to the same spot. He reaches his door only to realize she followed him. She steps right inside his room and quickly shuts the door behind her. Now watch this. He's shouting in total surprise, but she explains she checked with the association to find him and brought all her luggage along. She locks the door, telling him this proves exactly how serious she is about this. Hugging him tight, she whispers that from now on, they will always be together. She leans in close, calling him senpai right in his ear. He's completely flustered, just standing there frozen, having no idea how to handle the hug. The scene shifts to the next morning inside the inn. He sits on the bed, staring blankly at the room as she sleeps peacefully right there beside him. She wakes up, rolls over, and gives her senpai a sweet good morning. Holding his hand, she notes his impressive restraint last night. She smiles, saying she's in no rush for things to happen between them. Totally embarrassed, he vows to take the lead one day. She tells him to get ready so she can get her hunter's license. He's absolutely exhausted, worried that all this tension is going to give him permanent insomnia. We're back at the Kingdom's Hunter Association for the next step. Once they arrive at the association, the receptionist, May, greets him with a very cheerful good morning. He just asks if Olga can get her hunter's license today. Suddenly, Olga appears, and her presence completely catches the receptionist off guard. With a smile, she says she's here for her license. Panic sets in as May tells her to wait a moment. Seeing the commotion, he asks what happened. Olga explains she just gave a small warning since the receptionist was flirting with him. The angry receptionist slams the license onto the counter for her to take. May glares at Olga, declaring that she won't lose to her, no matter what happens. Holding her license, Olga tells her to do whatever she wants. You and I can feel the intense rivalry as they stare each other down. Stuck in the middle of this mess, he just watches the fight without a word. He says they can finally head into the dungeon. Once at the entrance, he tells her she is free to head down the floors. They arrive on the 10th floor, ready to explore this dangerous place together. Pointing at the monsters, he tells Olga to handle them alone. Suddenly, two giant gorillas prepare to charge and attack them both immediately. The beasts rush her at high speed. In a flash, she readies her bow to fire an arrow at the monsters. With one perfect shot, her arrow pierces both of the monsters at once. He watches with his arms crossed, looking slightly impressed. She grabs more arrows, preparing to fire a triple shot into the fray right now. With 3 arrows notched, she aims carefully at the gorillas for her next lethal strike. She lets all 3 arrows fly at once. He's stunned by the sheer precision and speed of her shots. The gorillas keep charging, closing the distance for a melee strike. He shouts for her to switch to close-quarters combat immediately. Drawing a dagger, she meets the monsters head-on. With one swift move, she strikes a gorilla with her blade. The beast lets out a cry of pain as her quick attack lands perfectly. With a backflip, she uses her dagger with lethal precision. In an acrobatic move, she gathers her aura and finishes the gorilla off. He notes her combat is elite. Trust me, you and I need to see what's next. Alright, you and I are about to see a masterpiece. Standing over defeated monsters, she waves as he calls her a student he's truly proud of. Exiting the dungeon, they head back to town together. He can't stop praising her, noting how much she's leveled up since their last run. As they stroll, he suggests hitting floor 13 tomorrow. But suddenly, a frantic hunter comes charging toward them, screaming his name at the top of his lungs. He demands to know what's wrong, and the guy gasps out that a named monster appeared. He can't believe a Dullahan is roaming the dungeon. Over at the association, every hunter is whispering about this terrifying legendary creature surfacing out of nowhere. One survivor is there, completely breaking down. A hunter explains her whole party was ambushed by that headless knight deep inside the dungeon. The report gets even worse. Over 10 people were slaughtered in that single, brutal attack. He kneels down beside her, asking for details. Shaking, she explains that the monster's blade seemed to strike every one of them at the same time. When he asks about the sword, the hunter just collapses into a fit of despair. With no more info, he rejoins his squad. The receptionist asks if they're prepping a burial, but Bale insists they have to go back and retrieve the bodies. Bale refuses to leave them, needing to study the wounds to understand their enemy. Right then, the traumatized survivor is finally led out of the Hunter Association building. Watching her go, they realize getting intel from her is a lost cause. Without knowing its moves, forming an elite subjugation team is basically a suicide mission. Suddenly, we see a flashback of a massive named gorilla appearing within the burning battlefield. The receptionist notes it took every top ranker to win. Now pay attention, because Bale's about to make a choice that changes everything. One hunter mumbles that if they cross paths with that Dullahan, they're all as good as dead. Thinking of that broken hunter, he falls silent, weighing the massive risks involved. He steps up to the counter, volunteering to be the lead escort. He's not letting that recovery team go in unprotected. The next morning, the crew assembles at the base camp right outside the dungeon entrance. A leader gives the orders, setting floor 14 as the target. When someone asks what to do if the Dullahan shows up, the answer is simple: just run. Two hunters scoff at the plan, bragging that fighting it would be easy if they were leading. He tells her this is too dangerous and she should stay back. Furious, she screams that she won't be a burden. With the argument over, he barks the command to move out to the entire group. They charge into the depths together. By the time they reach floor 13, they're met with a dark, suffocating cavern that reeks of danger. Suddenly, he roars a warning as skeleton warriors emerge from the shadows. With glowing eyes, the undead rise up to tear the hunters apart. He shouts that body recovery is the main goal. Turning to Ulka, he asks if she can take them out. She draws her bow, firing a single arrow that completely shatters several skeleton monsters. A nearby hunter is stunned by her skill. They decide to leave the small fry for Ulka to handle alone. But then, a terrifying sound echoes through the cave. Suddenly, hunters from another party come sprinting back in absolute, soul-crushing terror. The sight before them leaves the entire group completely paralyzed with shock. Out of the flames, the Dullahan finally appears. Surrounded by a hellish aura, the Headless Horseman prepares to bring ruin to every hunter in its path. Lifting its blazing sword, it locks onto its first target. In a flash, it swings that flaming blade with lethal intent. One hunter tries to block, but his steel melts instantly. With one single, overwhelming strike, the monster wipes out everyone standing in its way. They can't believe their eyes. How did a beast this strong spawn on this floor? He stares at the blade, realizing it's no ordinary weapon. The sheer heat is turning heavy armor into liquid metal. Now you and I have to wonder, how do they even fight a monster like that? Suddenly, the Dullahan turns, sensing their presence. Without missing a beat, he yells for everyone to retreat as fast as their legs can carry them. He hears a strange noise and looks back, only to realize the monster isn't actually chasing them. It's just standing there, waiting. The Dullahan turns away, staying perfectly still instead of finishing the group off right now. Confused, he watches as the monster drives its massive sword deep into the dirt. He wonders what's going on, but then it clicks. That gesture? It's the traditional etiquette for a knightly duel. A flashback hits him. Memories of duels with Bale and his desperate battles against countless high-tier monsters flood back. A wild grin spreads across his face as he draws his sword for battle. The thrill is intoxicating. He's ready for a clash where one hit means death. But then, Ulka screams his name, dragging him back to reality. She pulls him back, insisting that the group's safety comes first. And trust me, we're all left wondering what would have happened if they actually fought. Alright, stick with me. You're about to see these hunters run for their lives from the Dullahan. Behind them, the Dullahan just stands there, completely motionless and eerie. While they retreat, a hunter yells that only high-ranking knights stand a chance. Then she notices his face and asks why he looks like that. She calls him out for smiling, catching him off guard. He quickly covers his mouth, trying to hide that twisted grin. One wrong move and that thing ends him. Still, he can't help but wonder if he's out here actually crazy enough to want this fight. Later that night, Rosebell is quiet under the stars. Inside their room, Olka takes a long bath to wash away the day's stress. Meanwhile, Ash just sits there, unable to stop thinking about that monster from the dungeon. At the association, the survivors tell their story. The receptionist gasps, shouting the name of the Headless Horseman's legendary blade. The hunters shake their heads, insisting there's no way they can take that thing down. She tells them to abandon the bodies of the fallen. One hunter adds that calling the knights for help isn't even an option. Looks like they're on their own. Suddenly, the receptionist walks over to Ash, clearly about to ask for a massive favor. She looks him in the eye and asks if he'll go back to face the Dullahan. He's stunned into silence, just staring back at her. But then Olka suddenly grabs his arm and pulls him away. Now, pay attention here. Olka is waiting for his answer, but Ash asks for a little time to process everything. The receptionist smiles and agrees to wait. Back at the inn, Olka finally steps out of the bath, drying her hair off. Ash sits on the bed and calls her over. He's got that serious look on his face. It's time for a real talk. She sits down next to him and asks what's on his mind. Clenching his fists, he admits he wants to fight the Dullahan. Not because he has to, but because he truly wants to. He starts telling her to stay safe behind, but she shuts him up by pressing her hand firmly over his mouth. Pinching his cheeks, she demands to know why he's like this. Did he really think she'd let him go out there alone? She flashes back to the Empire's outbreak. Back then, he pulled the exact same move, begging her to stay behind for safety. But she remembers her answer. She was going with him, no matter what the danger was. Resolved, he decides to take the mission. Ash is still spinning, but Olka grabs his face and promises he won't lose to that headless knight. You and I can see where this is going. She's sticking by him, and they start talking about his reward for winning. Ash suggests maybe they could go out for a nice dinner at a fancy restaurant. Olka says dinner is fine, but she's got something else in mind, a very different kind of reward for when they survive. Ash asks if she's serious, and she confirms it. He agrees, and she gives her word. Next day, they ask a dealer for gear to stop a flaming sword. The guy points to a heavy shield, but Ash says that'll just slow him down. He needs something light for a hit-and-run style. Olka isn't so sure, asking if that flimsy gear will just melt instantly. The dealer shrugs, saying if they melt, you just toss them and keep moving. That shocks Ash, but he's already got a plan. They head back into the dungeon, reaching the 13th floor for the big showdown. Moving in, he spots their target and yells to Olka. The Dullahan is right where they left it, standing tall behind a wall of skeletons. It hits him right then. This monster wasn't just standing there. It was actually waiting for him to come back. Ash looks at the fallen hunters nearby and realizes more bodies have piled up since he left. The situation is getting way worse. He pulls out his gear, ready to put his strategy into motion. Taking a deep breath, he confirms he's finally ready for combat. With a loud shout, they charge. Ash leaps up onto a pillar for a better angle while Olka dives straight into a head-on assault. Drawing her bow back, she fires a glowing magic arrow directly at the Headless Horseman's chest. The monster casually blocks the shot with its massive blade. Seeing his opening, Ash jumps down from the pillar to strike from above. The Dullahan raises its heavy sword to meet him. Their blades clash in midair as the monster easily holds its ground against his descent. That's when he notices the monster isn't even using its sword's flames yet. The creature swings with a devastating blow. Ash manages to block it, but the sheer force nearly shatters his weapon into pieces. Struggling, he barely holds the blade back to stay alive. Seeing him in trouble, Olka screams his name and lets a precise arrow fly. The arrow slams into the Dullahan's shoulder, knocking it back. She shouts to check if he's okay, and he barely manages a nod. He notices the flames still haven't sparked. It's becoming clear this monster is actually having fun during their duel. You and I both know he's crazy. He just smiles, readying himself for more. Alright, stick with me because this duel between man and monster is about to get insane. The Dullahan raises its massive blade. With a heavy stride, the armored beast moves in to continue their life or death struggle. Both warriors point their steel at each other. They stay perfectly still, staring each other down, waiting for the right moment to strike. Ash leaps high into the air, coming down hard with a heavy strike from above. The blow is blocked by that massive shield of a sword. Ash quickly notices something strange. The monster's blade isn't covered in flames yet. High-speed charge! He rushes the Iron Giant once more with everything he's got. Olka prepares to fire, but Ash screams for her to wait. He tells her to stand down, sensing that this creature isn't just a monster. He explains that those movements and blocks, that's the fighting style of a highly trained knight. To confirm his theory, He takes a respectful stance and formally introduces himself as Ash, once a proud member of the Imperial Knight Corps. Hearing those words, the armored monster slowly turns its head to acknowledge him. Now pay attention to this. The creature snaps its feet together in a firm stance. It's performing the official knightly salute of the Rosebell Kingdom. The salute is returned. Ash has his proof this monster was once a knight. He shouts to a confused Ulka, telling her to stay back. This is his fight alone, and she is not to interfere no matter what. He looks at his foe, regretting that he can't ask for the knight's name. He promises that its legendary strength will be remembered forever. With a loud battle cry, he charges forward for one final, decisive clash. In one swift motion, he lands a direct, heavy hit right on the Dullahan's chest. But the armor only shows a tiny crack. Realizing just how tough this guy is, Ash prepares his next move. He vows to keep attacking until the armor gives. Another blow lands, but the knight doesn't even flinch under the pressure. A second strike hits the exact same spot, widening the crack. Ash smirks, realizing even a legend has a breaking point. The Dullahan looks down, finally noticing the damage starting to spread across its heavy chest plate. It slams its massive sword into the earth. Suddenly, the entire blade is swallowed by a roar of intense flames. Raising the burning blade high, it prepares an attack far stronger than before. I know what you're thinking. A flaming sword? Yeah, things just got dangerous. Ulka screams in terror, but Ash is just getting started. The knight charges forward with that fire blade, signaling the real battle has finally begun. He dodges, but the heat is intense. He yells as the flames singe his shoulder during the pass. He leaps back, barely escaping with his life. Now, he faces the Dullahan as it readies another searing overhead strike. Using both hands, Ash manages to block another crushing blow from the flame blade. To his shock, his own sword starts to melt from the heat. The knight prepares for the killing blow. From the sidelines, Ulka screams for her senior, her voice filled with pure desperation and worry. But Ash just flashes a confident smile. He has a plan. Their swords clash again with an earth-shattering impact. With a sudden shift in technique, he successfully parries the knight's burning blade. The armored knight pauses, looking genuinely surprised. Grinning, Ash reveals that he's actually prepared a special counter for this. He pulls out a small pouch, a magical tool used for storing large items. Suddenly, dozens of swords rain from the bag, sticking firmly into the ground around them. He challenges the knight to see who wins first. Will those flames melt every single blade here, or will Ash shatter its magic stone first? Grabbing a fresh blade from the dirt, he gets ready. Dual-wielding now, he tells the Dullahan it's time to settle this. Leaping forward, the two warriors engage in a final, brutal, and direct collision. His blade hits the fire sword and stops cold. The intense heat shatters his weapon right at the point of impact. Without missing a beat, he swings his second sword to keep the pressure on the knight. He barely dodges a lethal slash as the Dullahan presses the attack. The knight levels its flaming blade horizontally for a new strike. A massive wave of fire is launched toward Ash in a devastating horizontal slash. Ash's second sword shatters instantly from the heat. He rolls away, desperately repositioning himself near the other blades. Reaching out his hand, he prepares to snatch another fresh sword from the ground. He shouts that there are only 4 blades left. He hurls one with everything he has, but it's easily deflected by that massive flaming sword. Trust me, watch this. Alright, you and I are jumping into the climax, where Ash says only 3 swords remain as the knight prepares to strike. Suddenly, a massive wave of fire erupts toward Ash. He looks completely shocked, staring down the pure destructive power heading straight for him. Fire swallows the battlefield. From the sidelines, Ulka screams for her senpai, fearing the worst. Trapped in the inferno, Ash somehow holds his ground against the enemy's blistering heat. He stands firm in the center of the blaze, using his sword as an anchor. With total focus, he declares this is the final sword before leaping over the weapon toward the Dullahan. He grabs the blade just before landing. Sensing the danger, the armored knight digs in and braces for a final clash. That is when the knight erupts, forming a massive ring of fire around itself. Ash drops from the sky, sword in hand, aiming right for the center. He screams that it's over, locking onto his final target. Now pay attention, because he ignores the flames to drive his blade home. The impact shatters the knight's magic stone into pieces. Ash lands safely while the armor staggers back from the devastating hit. Somehow still standing, the Dullahan leans forward, barely held up by his own sword. Ash wonders why the stone didn't break earlier, but then, the flames on the knight's sword suddenly flicker and die. In a shocking move, the knight offers his hilt to Ash. Completely stunned, Ash just watches the weapon being handed over. He can't believe it. Is his opponent actually giving up his own weapon? The Dullahan keeps his arm extended, offering the hilt. Finally, Ash reaches out and takes a firm grip of the blade. Then, the knight opens his arms wide, exposing his chest as if waiting for the end. Holding the sword, Ash realizes the Dullahan wants him to finish it. He notes that any human would have died long ago. He closes his eyes, Admitting that the rush of the fight is finally over, Ash raises the sword, bidding farewell to a true warrior, before delivering a final strike right to the knight's chest. The helmet shatters instantly. Seconds later, the heavy armor crumbles, falling to the ground in a pile of broken metal. Standing over the wreckage, he sighs in relief. The long battle has finally come to an end. Keep watching. We shift back to the association at night. May and the others are losing it, unable to believe the Dullahan fell. Ash and Ulka just smile, confirming their massive victory. Back at the guild, Ash tells Ulka to pack the armor, but May starts screaming for them to stop. She explains they must wait for the knights to arrive first, and Ash agrees to wait. May orders her team to contact Sir Bale and prepare the largest room immediately. Ash tells Ulka, things are getting complicated. Suddenly, Bale arrives, greeting Ash with a smile and saying he knew he could pull it off. Ash is surprised. Did Bale really travel all this way just to look at some monster loot? Bale explains that legendary loot needs official witnesses from both sides. He then invites Ash to go inspect the items immediately. There it is. The Dullahan's armor is displayed in the hall alongside that massive great sword. An official carefully examines the armor with a monocle. He confirms to Bale that this is exactly what was reported. As Bale picks up the sword, he realizes they've found something even more rare. Suddenly, the blade erupts in flames. Bale identifies it as a powerful magic sword, leaving May and the official in absolute shock at what they are seeing. Watching the commotion, Ash asks what makes this kind of sword so special anyway. They explain this weapon is incredible because it needs no magic stones. Bale reveals this is only the 5th one ever discovered in history. He tells Ash a massive national reward is coming. Bale asks for a full battle report, while the official explains the items are heading to the research institute. Ulka's confused, so they explain the institute is a royal group that studies and builds magical artifacts. Bale suddenly gets serious, turning his full attention back toward Ash. He asks what the Dullahan was really like, waiting for Ash to give him the truth. With a grim face, Ash confirms his suspicions. That monster wasn't just a beast, it was a true knight. Bale admits he suspected it too, since the armor looked like it belonged to ancient warriors. He wonders what the research institute will think once they see the proof themselves. You and I know that name or not, he was a legend. Ash smiles, confirming he was a hero. Alright, let's dive in as May congratulates the duo for their incredible work. Ash stretches, noting it took a while since night has already fallen. Exhausted, he suggests they head back to the inn for some rest. Suddenly, a group of hunters shows up, shouting that it is time to celebrate. Totally surprised, Ash and Ulka stand frozen by the reception. Soon, everyone is gathered at a tavern table, eating and drinking together. They raise their mugs high, making a toast to celebrate their big achievement. The hunters crown him Ash, the Dullahan Slayer. While drinking, Ash thinks this title is way better than being called an exterminator. Then, one hunter asks if they have picked a name for their group yet. Now pay attention, because as Ash thinks about a name, a flashback to the ancient god Janus sparks a brand new idea for their squad. He remembers his training days with Ulka, Will, and Mireille. With a faint smile, he has finally made his big decision. Looking at Ulka, he says the name was decided long ago. She smiles back at him and nods her head enthusiastically. The other hunters are left standing there, totally confused. They announce that they are now the Janus squad. Meanwhile, a steam train arrives and stops at a busy city station. A traveler steps off the train, setting foot on the platform to begin their brand new journey in the city. With a grin, Mireille celebrates reaching her destination at long last. She notes the train ride was not bad at all while admiring the famous first dungeon city with her own eyes for the first time. Looking determined, she shouts for Ash and Ulka to wait for her. Mireille walks excitedly, planning to become a hunter and make a fortune she can spend on gambling and drinks with her friends. Reaching her destination, she finally finds the city's famous hunter association. Some hunters gossip about her appearance as she walks in. The group then approaches, asking if she wants to become a hunter to know her better. Ignoring the men completely, she goes straight to the counter and tells the staff she is looking for someone. She explains she is searching for an imperial hunter named Ash, who supposedly came through this city. However, the receptionist tells her that nobody by that name is registered at the association. Okay, I know what you are thinking. Mireille realizes Ulka lied just so she could be totally alone with her beloved Ash. Screaming, she declares her plan to get rich won't die like this. She asks about other associations, and the receptionist says there are 2 more nearby. Mireille decides to try the nearest one immediately. She stops as a sudden idea hits her. Showing her money, she asks if it can buy a train ticket. The receptionist says it isn't enough, leaving her totally stunned. She hears a hunter calling out from across the hall. Approaching her, the group offers to lend her the missing cash. Resting a hand on her shoulder, the leader demands something in exchange. With a weary sigh, Mireille decides she has had enough. Suddenly, she lands a powerful punch right in the leader's face. He hits the ground hard, leaving the others standing there in total shock. Without wasting a second, she lunges toward the next hunter. With a precise kick, she strikes the opponent square in the face. The last guy curses after seeing his friend fall. Enraged, she turns to face him and prepares to end this fight for good. She delivers one final, powerful kick to the last man still standing. With all three guys down, Murray stands still and observes the total carnage. The leader screams she will pay for that, but Murray ducks and evades his punch with total ease. He lunges past and misses, losing his balance before Murray lands a pinpoint kick right to his head. On impact, the man spits and falls to the ground, knocked out cold. Murray angrily warns them to beat it, since she is in a bad mood, while the receptionist watches everything from the counter in total shock. She suggests Murray become a hunter to earn the money she needs. Murray has an epiphany. She can become a hunter, make a fortune, and finally earn enough to go after Ash. 2 days later, Ash and Ulka are walking peacefully together through the city. Ulka calls out to him with something important to say, but they run into Bale, who is busy escorting the armor to the capital. Bale calls them both over because he has something serious to say about an ancient, faded inscription he found on the Dullahan's armor. So what do you and I make of this knight who never returned? Alright, you and I are about to see if Ash really turns into a monster when he dies. But Bale admits nobody knows. The Institute will investigate, hoping these items are useful. He says his goodbyes, letting them know that both the Institute and the Association will be handling their rewards. With a final farewell, Ash and Ulka agree to head straight to the Association to collect their hard-earned cash. Back at the guild, the tension is high as they wait for their payout. Turns out, they hit the 5 million rose jackpot. They stare in total disbelief, trying to calculate their massive individual shares. Now watch this. Because May drops a bombshell, they are now exclusive hunters for the second dungeon city. Ash wonders if it is a big deal, and she confirms they will get VIP treatment. Hyped up, she begs them to keep crushing every monster they encounter. Night falls, and Ash is alone in his room, replaying everything. Glass in hand, he reflects on his future and what his next move should be. He wonders to himself what he will even do with all that money. Suddenly, his bedroom door slowly creaks open. Someone is stepping inside, walking barefoot across the floor toward where he is sitting. He turns around to hear a familiar voice calling him senpai. Ulka wraps him in a hug, reminding him about that reward he promised. I know what you are thinking. And yeah, Ash is totally embarrassed as he stammers through an agreement. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Ulka invites him over. Nervous and unsure, Ash just kneels on the floor, facing her. Now they are both on the bed, staring into each other's eyes in absolute silence. Then, she gently pushes him back onto the mattress. Crawling on top, Ulka looks down at him with a gaze of pure determination. She flashes a stunning smile while he sits there completely frozen. Grabbing his arm, she tells him exactly how to position it. She lies down beside him, snuggling in close and using his arm as a pillow. She whispers that she wants to sleep like this every single night. Caught off guard, he just stares. He awkwardly asks if that is all she wanted, making her wonder if he is actually disappointed. She mentions her promise to wait, but asks if she is being unfair to him. He smiles and tells her no, he is the unfair one. Softly stroking her head, he gently pulls her even closer. Holding her tight, he calls her precious and asks her to stay. She smiles back, promising she will always be by her senpai's side. And that is where we leave them, two hearts committed forever. Alright, you and I are jumping back in just 1 week after that massive fight, with the Janus squad finally living their new lives as hunters. Ulka laughs that the skeletons on floor 15 are a total joke now, but she has no clue what is waiting for them on floor 16. Ash is not waiting around. He tells her it is time to see what the next level holds. Entering the new floor, they stumble into a totally unexpected scene, a massive desert landscape that stretches as far as the eye can see. Looking at the endless dunes, Ash cannot believe they are actually still inside the dungeon. Ulka says dungeons are full of secrets, but Ash's eyes lock onto something massive and terrifying soaring through the sky. Now pay attention, this is where the speed picks up as a smaller beast dives straight for our duo. Ash braces for impact and leaps high, landing a perfect heavy strike right into the monster's chest. Struck dead center, the beast lets out a piercing shriek as it starts plummeting toward the sand. As it falls, the creature sprays a hail of feathers that bury themselves deep into the parched earth. Suddenly, every single one of those feathers begins to glow with an intense light. A massive explosion erupts, forcing Ash to dive back while Ulka realizes these are magical, exploding projectiles. Shaking off the blow, the monster screeches and resets for another deadly pass. Okay, I know what you are thinking, run, right? But suddenly, a mysterious voice claims this is actually their best chance to win. Ash looks up to find an unknown woman standing right beside him, ready for the coming fight. Without a second's hesitation, she charges in, slamming the monsters and blowing them away with the sheer impact of her attack. She sticks the landing and immediately moves to finish the job without giving them a moment to breathe. Ash and Ulka can only stare as this mystery warrior commands her elite group to advance. Suddenly, more hunters join the fray, including an archer who lets fly a perfect shot at the winged beasts. His arrow finds its mark, slamming into one creature, while the rest of the pack continues to swarm. Another female fighter joins in, carving through a monster with a single, expert flash of her blade. Ash is absolutely stunned by their skills, and honestly, you and I just witnessed a total masterclass in how professional hunters handle dungeon combat. Stick with me, the group leader steps up and notes it has been a long time. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into the drama as Ash thanks Tanya, but then she gets way too close for his comfort. Ulka witnesses the whole thing, and completely freezes up with a look of pure shock on her face. Tanya purrs that helping him was all her pleasure, but that is exactly when Ulka charges right between them, screaming at the top of her lungs for them to stop immediately. Shoving Ash aside, Ulka demands to know what Tanya thinks she is doing all of a sudden. Ulka clings to Ash and glares at this stranger, demanding to know who she is, while Tanya just watches the chaos with a smug little smile. A little later, the three of them move to the tavern to sit down and finally talk. Introducing herself as Tanya Sandor, she greets the young lady, while Ash explains she is actually the famous leader and goddess of a top group. He asks about her family visit, and she confirms she literally just stepped back into town today. Tanya sighs that she would have handled the monster herself if she was around, but Ulka is not buying the tough talk at all, though Ash disagrees. He reminds her that Tanya was a key player in taking down that red ape years ago. She plays it cool, saying she just wanted to make a name for herself, but Ulka wonders why a high noble would even know her senior. Ash clears the air, revealing she has actually tried to recruit him into her group before. Tanya gives him an intense look, warning him that she has not given up on the idea of having him in her group quite yet. Now watch this, she boldly proposes that he can have her body however he wants. Ulka screams in pure shock, but Tanya just wonders if it is a bad deal while Ash tries to stay grounded. Ash excuses himself to the restroom, leaving the two women alone, and Tanya's eyes never leave him as he walks away. Ulka slams her mug down with a loud bang, finally forcing Tanya to pay attention to her. With fury in her eyes, Ulka threatens to kill her if she dares lay a single finger on her senior. Tanya just laughs it off, calling her the jealous type, before grabbing Ulka's chin and saying her interest is not just in Ash. She drops a massive bomb that she wants Ulka too, leaving the poor girl screaming in a state of absolute disbelief. Pointing to her team, she claims they are all perfectly satisfied with her special techniques. Her teammates just look away in silence, while Tanya is pure confidence, claiming she gets everything she wants by using every weapon she has. Ulka just glares back with a dead serious look, declaring she will never lose or give up on her senior. Tanya gets the hint, snaps her fingers, and suggests they finally start the contest. Several waitresses arrive with full mugs, ready to serve the two heated competitors. Watch this, they are actually settling this dispute with an all-out drinking contest, much to Ash's total disbelief. The competition starts as they down mug after mug without even stopping for air. They scream for more, staring each other down while Ash tries to get Ulka to quit. Seeing Ulka finally pass out, Ash tells Tanya that is enough drinking for one night. Tanya claims he owes her one now, but Ash just smiles and says she will be waiting for nothing. She just chuckles, clearly amused, before saying goodbye and heading out with her whole squad. Later that night, he carries a sleeping Ulka through the city's quiet, dark streets. Even while unconscious, she mumbles for her senior to hold her close, hugging his neck and refusing to let go. Now pay attention while they are heading back. An old man suddenly asks them all about the Dullahan. Ash is completely lost, asking for a clarification on what exactly is going on here. The man shakes their hands, identifying Ash and Ulka as the true heroes. He gets right in Ash's face, excitedly asking what it was like to face that monster in an epic battle. He fires off question after question, wanting to know every single detail of the massive fight. Totally confused by this stranger, Ash steps forward and politely asks for the man's name. He introduces himself as Edgar Bayluna, the Research Institute director, leaving them both in total shock. He explains that the monster's armor was simply fascinating, and he just had to see it. And that's where we leave it. This director could not stay away and had to come talk in person. Let's dive in. Ash is stunned by the man's godlike energy. With introductions finished, he grabs a special item, and trust me, you're going to want to see this. He points his finger, focusing hard on the procedure. You saw that, right? Alright, you and I are about to see a real master at work. Edgar's flaming finger leaves them totally stunned by his power. Then, cool as ice, he uses the flame to light a cigar before finally preparing to speak. Revealing his status as a mage, he demands the story of the Dullahan. Edgar wants every single detail about the battle they survived. Settling onto the sofa, the hunters finally agree to spill everything. As time passes, their account of the long battle continues without a single interruption. Finally finishing his report, Ash sighs and says that is everything he knows about the legendary Dullahan. After taking it all in, Edgar nods and congratulates them. Ash then nervously asks what the mage thinks about their human theories. Snuffing out his cigar, Edgar confirms he agrees with their hypothesis that the monster was once human. Ash freezes, asking if it is truly possible for a living human to turn into a mindless monster. Dropping a bombshell, Edgar reveals he personally investigated the 14th floor. In a flashback, we see him scouting the spot where the Dullahan appeared. Inside the deep shadows, he adjusts his lamp, trying to pierce through the suffocating darkness of the cave. Now watch this. He swings the light, and his heart stops as he finds the skeletons of the kingdom's former knights scattered everywhere. They were not just bodies, their remains were fused directly into the walls, turned to ancient bone. Hearing this nightmare discovery, Ash and Olka are left completely speechless by the truly gruesome revelation. Stunned, Ash asks if those knights were the monster's allies, which Edgar confirms. He then asks if they know about the source of magical power. He explains that these dungeons are completely saturated with the same mana mages use. Because of this, even a normal sword becomes magical when exposed. Following that logic, he theorizes that human bodies can also transform into monsters. Sitting on the sofa, the two stay silent, processing this heavy new information. With a grin, Edgar asks if they do not feel the thrill of discovery. To him, solving these mysteries is the kingdom's ultimate truth. Worried, Ash asks if he really explored that 14th floor all alone. Laughing it off, Edgar says he brought his assistant and a team of hunters along. Suddenly, a young man bursts in, shouting that he finally found Sir Edgar. Edgar asks why Sergio is in such a panic, but the kid just looks annoyed. Scolding the mage, he asks why Edgar always wanders off to do whatever he wants. Laughing at the chaos, Bale explains that Edgar always gets like this around dungeons. Ash turns to Bale, mentioning he just learned how magic swords are made. Desperate, Bale begs them to keep that secret, leaving Ash totally embarrassed. Trust me, this is where the real mission begins. Edgar tells Bale they should finally proceed with their plans. Not understanding the sudden shift, the two just look at each other in total confusion. The very next day, they return to the association. While they wait at a table, May busily organizes a stack of important documents nearby. Hearing the door swing open, Ash asks if Bale has finally arrived. Instead, a man with flowing blonde hair makes a truly grand entrance. This is Kyle, the leader of the Golden Knight, looking every bit the elite warrior. Right behind him is Talon, the leader of Muscle Encounter, looking as massive and imposing as ever. Finally, Tanya, the leader of the Goddess's Sword, enters the hall. Ash wonders if Bale called every top group, and a hunter confirms it. Surveying the room, Tanya notes that every elite group in the city is gathered here. Seeing Tanya, Olka's blood boils, and she glares intensely at her rival. Arriving with Bale, Edgar greets the crowd, ready to start. Kyle asks Bale about the plan, questioning the reason for this sudden, massive hunter meeting. Opening a map, Edgar explains the recent spike in named monsters, citing the Red Ape and Dullahan. Pointing at the map, he notes these beasts only appear within the second dungeon. With a look of pure determination, he announces a massive investigation. He explains that is why the city's absolute best have been summoned today. Asking for their full cooperation, he formally requests their help for this dangerous mission. Stunned by the scale of the request, the group leaders fall into a heavy silence. Taking charge, Bale explains they must escort the knights to the deepest levels. A hunter gasps, asking if they mean the 20th floor. May then chimes in, informing them that the association is already prepping all necessary supplies. Tanya raises her hand, asking if everyone's participation is truly mandatory. Bale confirms it is a direct order from the queen herself. A hunter scoffs, saying with this many heroes, it will be a piece of cake. Bale warns them never to underestimate the danger. You and I just heard Tanya reached floor 18, while the rest are stuck at 17. Alright, you and I are jumping back in as Ash confirms they are still exploring the 16th floor. Bale drops a grim warning though. The 19th floor is a literal graveyard where entire teams have been wiped out. Tanya is stunned. She asks if even the elite knights with magic weapons were crushed there. Bale nods. There is a monster there far beyond anything they have faced, the terrifying Lizard King. Back in the city, Ash and Olka take a moment to breathe at a quiet cafe. Olka leans in with a strawberry, asking her senior to open wide. Ash just stares, totally caught off guard. She doesn't back down, bringing the fruit right to his lips with a playful smile. Before he can protest, she feeds it to him. Total surprise move. He admits it is delicious, making her beam. But suddenly, a strange noise from the street kills the vibe. A parade of knights, on horseback rattles by, escorting a massive supply wagon through town. Ash realizes the gear for the big investigation has finally arrived. Let's see if they are ready. Olka worries if they will be okay, but Ash trusts this kingdom. She then asks about their savings. Ash sighs, listing off boring stuff like taxes and survival costs. Then he drops a bombshell he wants to buy a house with a yard. Olka gets hyped about the extra gear space, but Ash says she will need her own private room. She freezes at the mention of a separate room, then blurs out that this house is their love nest. Ash is confused, asking if she hates the idea, but she quickly shuts that down. With a huge grin, she says she loves it. They agree to finish this mission as fast as possible. On the day of the investigation, the city is packed. Hunters watch as the big players finally arrive. First up is Tanya's squad, the legendary sword of the goddess. Then Kyle leads in the Golden Knights, with Talon's muscle encounter crew grabbing everyone's attention in the back. Finally, the Janus squad makes their entrance, with Ash and Ulka looking more confident than ever. The crowd is hyped. With this lineup, you and I know they can handle anything. But one arrogant knight scoffs, saying they don't need hunters. Bad move, someone's already glaring him down. Talon is furious, and Ulka tries to stop Ash, but he is already stepping up to the plate. Ash shuts them down, telling the knights they have no idea what real battle looks like. He tries to de-escalate, reminding everyone they are all on the same side today. The knight just sneers, calling Ash past victories nothing but pure luck. The hunters snap back, telling him to put his money where his mouth is. The knight draws his blade. Suddenly, Ash finds himself the target of a vicious, unexpected strike. He dodges effortlessly and counters with a brutal knee to the gut. The knight realizes Ash is the real deal. The knight keeps swinging, but Ash is like a ghost out there. Ash locks in, preparing a special skill. A heavy palm strike to the face sends the knight reeling. The guy hits the dirt hard, completely stunned by the sheer impact. His partner isn't having it. He pulls a magic stone and slots it into his hilt to power up. Both knights prepare for a twin assault, but Ash tells them to knock it off already. Suddenly, a thunderous voice commands them to freeze. The knights stop dead in their tracks. An older man steps forward, scolding the hot-headed knights for making a scene. He smacks them both upside the head. Total fools. Bale introduces the man. This is Marquis Roy Orlando, the captain of the Royal Knights. He is the strongest in the kingdom and one of the 10 master swordsmen alive. The hunters are starstruck by this legend. The Marquis apologizes for his men, and the group plays it cool. The Marquis explains that this investigation is actually the Queen's personal wish. The hunters get hyped and agree instantly. The Marquis claps Ash on the shoulder, praising his talent. And that's where we leave it. The investigation into the Abyss officially begins right now. All right, you and I are about to join an epic expedition that is about to go completely sideways. Deep on the 14th floor, the knights and hunters push through the darkness while hauling critical survival supplies. Keeping a steady pace at the rear, Ash and his team follow the main force. Everything seems fine until a familiar, frantic voice echoes through the cavern, calling out for Ash and Ulka. Ash stops dead in his tracks, trying to figure out who exactly is shouting his name. Edgar rushes toward them, shouting that something is wrong. Ash and Ulka can only stare in total confusion. Without wasting a second, Edgar leads them back into the tunnels to show them his discovery. He points at a wall where knight remains once rested, but the skeletons have completely vanished into thin air. Ulka is skeptical, but Edgar swears this is the exact spot where he saw them. As Ash questions reality, Edgar drops the truth this dungeon is alive and its layout is constantly shifting. The idea of walls moving on their own leaves Ulka completely stunned. Edgar is absolutely thrilled by the mystery, as the group finally emerges into the desert of the 16th floor. Don't blink, the peace is about to be shattered by total chaos. A swarm of flying monsters descends from the sky. Bale draws his sword, ordering everyone to defend the cargo. One beast dives low, raining down explosive feathers on the terrified hunters. One man barely dodges the blast, cursing the lethal magic these creatures possess. Ash sees his chance to strike. He signals Ulka, who launches a powerful energy arrow at the lead monster. The shot lands perfectly, and the creature lets out a gut-wrenching screech. The monster spirals toward the ground as Ash moves in to finish the job. With a roar, Ash swings his blade in a lethal arc, cutting the beast down for good. The surrounding hunters can't help but cheer for the duo's incredible combat teamwork. Ulka is buzzing with excitement, while Ash reminds everyone to stay sharp. The fight isn't over yet. Once the dust settles, Bale calls out that the battle is finally won. Grinning, Bale claps Ash on the shoulder to thank him for the assist. The Marquis approaches, asking for their names, so they introduce themselves as Ash and Ulrika from the Janus squad. Looking impressed, the Marquis promises that their names won't be forgotten. He walks away, leaving them alone. Ash exhales, relieved that the high-stakes encounter with the noble is over. Bale notes that Orlando is fair, no matter your social status. He is glad he brought them along as the group begins the trek to the 17th floor. Ash realizes this is uncharted territory for them, their very first time here. You and I both know that things are about to get much more dangerous. The expedition enters the 17th floor, a gloomy, oppressive swamp filled with shadows. Tanya warns them about the bottomless mud, while Ulka keeps her bow aimed at the water. Seeing strange bubbles, Ash suggests that the non-combat scholars should stay back for safety. Suddenly, a massive reptilian beast lunges from the depths. Ash draws his sword to meet the threat. He strikes the creature's head with everything he has, but his blade simply bounces off its hide. He can't believe his steel won't leave a scratch. The monster rises, revealing itself as a fearsome, armored lizardman. Tanya shouts that their scales are hard as steel, and then the monsters start calling out. Dozens of lizardmen explode from the water, surrounding the entire party. Ash realizes they're being swarmed. Bale quickly commands the magic archers to prepare their volley. He gives the order to open fire at once. Energy arrows rain down on the horde, but they just ping off the lizardmen's indestructible armor. Ash is horrified. If even magic bows can't break through, how will they survive? So stay with me because you and I are about to see if these hunters can survive. Stick with me, we're diving straight into a brutal monster ambush. The beast sinks its fangs deep into the warrior. Screaming in agony, the knight is left dangerously wounded by the creature's vicious bite. Dragging its prey down, the lizardman pulls him into the murky water, desperate to drown the man in the swamp. Ash sprints to help, yelling for the knight to hold on. Taking Tanya's advice, he charges straight for the monster's exposed throat. As the beast turns, he locks onto its only weak spot. With one perfect strike, he drives his sword deep into its gullet. The monster sinks into the muck, letting the knight go. Pulling the injured man up, Ash checks if he's okay. He then yells for the healers to treat him right away. Panting, the knight admits he underestimated just how powerful these hunters really are. Ash takes a stance, ready to dive back into the chaos. He signals a counterattack, sending every elite squad charging forward. Moving as one, the squad leaders face off against the massive lizardman horde. Squaring up with a beast, Ash prepares for a high-stakes, face-to-face showdown. The monster snaps its jaws, but Ash catches it barehanded. He quickly realizes these things have more than just tough scales, their raw power is insane. The Marquis sees the struggle, and bellows an order for everyone to pull back now. Now, watch this. As the group prepares to retreat, Edgar raises his hand to finally unleash a massive and destructive elemental spell. With a roar, he releases a colossal wave of electricity across the entire swamp. The magic hits the water, frying every monster in sight. The lizardmen drop instantly, their lifeless bodies floating in the muck. Ash watches in awe, realizing just how terrifying mages can be. Out of breath, Edgar admits that high-tier spells drain him. The Marquis just nods, prioritizing the safety of the entire unit. Reaching the gateway, Bale announces they're stepping onto the 18th floor. The Marquis orders the researchers, porters, and wounded to stay behind. Bale confirms that only a hand-picked elite squad will advance to the next floor. Looking serious, the Marquis starts calling out the names of the chosen hunters. Ash is stunned, he can't believe his group was actually picked for the mission. Bale reveals the Goddess's Sword and Janus squad are joining the Knights. Apparently, the Marquis was impressed enough by their last fight to recommend them. The other hunters cheer Ash on, telling him to give it his all. You and I are about to see a whole new world as Ash steps into a massive, damp field. Looking around, Ash notes that this place feels more like a soggy pasture than a swamp. He wonders what's lurking here, but Tanya warns him that these lizardmen are much stronger. She points to the horizon, where they spot thatched huts and primitive weapons lined up in the distance. A massive settlement opens up before them, crawling with hundreds of lizardmen. It is a village. These monsters are smart. Already, the lizardmen are moving into a perfect and deadly battle formation. Tanya explains these aren't just beasts, these are trained soldiers waiting for them. The Marquis knows they have to push through. Bale tells Ash's team to hang back and watch for now. The Marquis roars, ordering the magic spear unit to launch their attack. The Knights charge, slamming into the first line of defense. The kingdom's warriors fight like demons against the horde. Suddenly, a lizardman's throat swells up. Before anyone can react, it spits a massive fireball at a knight. The knight barely blocks it with his shield, but the force knocks him back. Ash is shocked. Was that magic? Even with a successful block, the knight's shield is literally melting from that heat. The Marquis notes that their gear is holding up well, surviving at least one direct magical hit. He orders the attack to continue and jumps into the fray himself. 3 lizardmen lunge at him with bared blades. Drawing his blade, the Marquis lets off a surge of overwhelming power. With one swing, he obliterates all 3 monsters, but the rest of the horde doesn't care, they charge him anyway. Sword held high, he prepares to cut down the next wave of beasts. He clears the area with one circular strike. Ash and Ulka are speechless at that kind of power. Tanya just watches, noting that the skill of the kingdom's greatest swordsman hasn't diminished at all. Trust me, you and I just saw why he's officially one of the 10 legendary swordsmen. Stick with me, we're diving into a massive clash. Inspired by his leadership, the knights charge forward, shouting to follow Lord Orlano. With a fierce shout, Bale lunges forward, slicing through a lizardman in one clean motion. Suddenly, Ash strikes, decapitating the monster before it can lay a claw on the nearby hunter. Bale's furious, yelling that he ordered Ash to stay back. But with a cocky smirk, Ash ignores him and tells him to relax. Ulka gears up for combat, warning everyone that they aren't just here to be spectators. The other hunters jump in, showing off their lethal skills. Bale watches with a grin, realizing these guys are on a whole different level. Bale calls Ash over, declaring that it's finally time to end this fight once and for all. Raising his blade, the Marquis announces their victory. Every single monster has been completely wiped out. The fighting stops, leaving the ground littered with lizardmen. Ash spots something strange on one of the corpses and leans in for a closer look. He kneels down, pointing at a weird detail on the creature's body and asking what it could be. Ulka walks over, curious about the find. Ash points to the bright red blood, admitting he's never seen anything like it before. Edgar approaches from behind, nodding because he figured they'd eventually notice the strange color of the blood. He explains the logic. Normal monster blood is purple and packed with deadly toxins. Usually, monster corpses rot into liquid almost instantly, but the body Tanya brought back earlier just wouldn't decompose. Now, here's where it gets weird. This red blood has 0 toxins. Edgar's determined to solve this mystery before his time is up. Moving into the village, they start investigating the settlement. They find actual beds woven from grass and piles of insect larvae. They even find a workshop used for crafting their own weapons and tools. Edgar realizes these things are highly intelligent. He's genuinely excited, calling them fascinating compared to any normal monster. Ash and Ulka can't help but laugh at his enthusiasm, enjoying the lighthearted moment. Suddenly, Bale pulls Ash aside with something important on his mind. He hands over a sword, telling him to take it before the next mission. Ash is stunned as he recognizes the blade. It's the legendary magic sword from years ago. He's hesitant about such a gift, but Bale insists he'll need its power once they reach the 19th floor. The Marquis explains that everything was just preparation for what waits below. Ash just grins confidently, ready to face the challenge head-on. Stepping onto the 19th floor, they're greeted by a massive green field stretching under a bright blue sky. In the distance, the settlement is even bigger than the last one. Armies of lizardmen soldiers are lined up, just waiting for the order to kill. Ash is stunned by the numbers, estimating there are at least 200 of them blocking the way. The monsters communicate through eerie sounds, clearly organizing themselves into a tactical battle formation. Suddenly, all eyes turn to the massive hut at the center. From the shadows within, a terrifying growl echoes out, announcing a deadly presence. Step by step, a hulking red lizardman emerges from the tent, wielding a massive, bloodthirsty axe. With one earth-shaking roar, the beast asserts its dominance over every single person on the battlefield. Now, watch this. You and I are about to see the terrifying Lizard King in action. Ash locks eyes with it, bracing for the fight. Gripping his sword, he actually smiles, remarking that the Lizard King looks impressively powerful. Ulka calls out to him, pointing out that he's actually grinning despite the danger. Embarrassed, he apologizes while trying to hide his excitement. Suddenly, the Lizard King lets out a deafening roar that paralyzes everyone on the field. The king leaps forward, swinging its massive axe at the knights. They scramble to defend themselves, but the force is absolutely overwhelming. They try to block with their magic gear, but the impact sends them skidding backward. Even working together, the knights can't seem to contain the Lizard King's monstrous strength. They're blasted away by the pure force of the monster's power. With just one swing, the knights are crushed, showing a terrifying gap in strength. In the chaos, the rest of the knights find themselves surrounded and swarmed by the lizardmen soldiers. Bale sees the pressure is breaking everyone. Shouting that he'll handle this, the Marquis charges forward to face the king himself. The Lizard King brings down its axe, but the Marquis stands his ground and bravely blocks the strike. Steel clashes against iron in a display of raw power. Parrying the blow, the Marquis skillfully catches the massive blade with his sword. With a burst of effort, he releases a green energy slash that actually forces the Lizard King back. Sword in hand, Roy Orlano goes all out against the king. Meanwhile, Ash and Ulka are stuck fighting off the mobs in the back. Ash wants to help, but he's blocked. Trust me, you and I won't want to miss what happens next. You and I are about to dive back into the chaos as Ash decides the Lizard King is a job for the knights. He and Ulka charge forward together. Suddenly, 2 lizard men with glowing throats block their path. They spit fireballs, but Ash and Ulka dance through the flames, keeping their momentum. With one clean swing of his magic sword, Ash carves through a whole group of monsters at once. He stops right in front of one beast to deliver a blow, but the monster retaliates by firing a fireball right at him. Ash barely dodges the heat, guts the lizard man, and uses its heavy corpse as a shield against the next wave of attacks. He kicks the dead weight into the enemy ranks with force. Sword at the ready, he focuses his mind for the next clash against his enemies. In one fluid, precise motion, he slices another lizard man completely in half without a second of hesitation. As the body hits the floor, he is still surrounded by dozens of enemies. The horde looks absolutely endless. Gripping his magic blade, he wonders how they are going to survive this swarm. Back at the main event, the Lizard King towers over Marquis Orlano and strikes with his axe, clashing against the man's sword. Roy Orlano grits his teeth, shouting that they can't fail here, but the creature's raw strength is pushing him back. The pressure is insane, he can barely stay on his feet. Suddenly, the Marquis collapses to his knees, clutching his chest and coughing. He curses his body for giving out right now. Seeing his prey as helpless, the Lizard King just stands there, watching him with a cold stare. Watching from a distance, Ash screams the name while Ulka says they are too far. That is when Ash spots the spear on his back. He tells Ulka to let loose with every explosive arrow she has. She nods, instantly knocking her special projectiles. She leaps into the air and rains down a volley of arrows on the giant monster. Pay attention here. Ash is making his move. While the Lizard King is caught in the explosion, he prepares himself and hurls the spear with everything he has now. Taking full advantage of the distraction, he launches the weapon toward the great Lizard King. It is a direct hit. The spear detonates against the monster's back in a massive blast. The Lizard King just turns its head, completely unbothered. Ulka panics that the attack did nothing, but Ash says it does not even matter. He knows these things are smart. They will understand exactly what he is planning to do. With a casual flick of his finger, he taunts the beast. The provocation succeeds, and he sees the signal reflected in the creature's eyes. Absolutely enraged by the gesture, the Lizard King forgets everything and sprints straight for them. Ash's plan worked. While the monster approaches, Sir Edgar helps the Marquis, who realizes Ash just saved his life. Roy Orlano tells Edgar this is their chance. Meanwhile, the Lizard King lunges, trying to strike Ash with its massive axe. Ash catches the blow on his blade, realizing with a chill that even his magic sword cannot cut through this monster's hide. The beast looms over him, jaws open wide, ready to tear him apart. He shouts a warning and rolls away from a deadly swipe. The monster spins its body, building momentum for another heavy attack. The axe handle slams into Ash with great force, throwing him backward into the dirt. He scrambles back up, scanning the field from afar. Then, he hears someone calling his name and turns toward the shout. Sir Edgar tells him to clear out as he readies a fire spell. He shouts that this ends right now. He launches a massive fireball. It hits the Lizard King dead center, triggering an earth-shaking explosion. You and I saw that hit, right? Even Roy asks the beast if it enjoyed that little fireworks show. As the smoke settles, the monster is still standing. Sir Edgar collapses, devastated that his best shot was not enough to bring it down. Seizing the opening, Ash leaps onto the creature's back and raises his sword for one last gamble. He drives the blade deep into the creature's neck with all his power. But he is thrown off and pinned as the Lizard King roars in victory. He looks back. His magic sword is shattered. Roy Orlano shouts for Ash to catch his own blade. Ash grabs the Marquise's sword in midair, bracing for the counter. Roy yells that his sword carries the power of the wind itself. He orders Ash to slice that monster in two. With a roar of pure determination, he begins his final attack. The blade strikes home, carving through the Lizard King from top to bottom. Everyone watches in silence to see the result of that final blow. It is over. The knights and hunters erupt in cheers as their main enemy finally falls. Roy Orlano announces that the king is dead and orders one last charge to finish the rest. Bail Barone leads the final charge, and that is where we leave it. Ash watches from the ground as the monsters are finally driven out. Stick with me, you and I are about to see this hero get his reward. Roy Orlano watches the young couple, envying their youth, while Bail asks if Ash belongs to this kingdom. Roy explains he was a former Imperial Knight, a massive waste of such incredible talent. When Bail asks if he will join the Knights, Roy reveals a bigger plan he is going to adopt him. Bail is stunned by the news, wondering if Roy would really go that far for a stranger. The Marquis knows better than to force a power struggle, believing that true talent will always find a way to the top. Shifting gears, Sergio rushes to Sir Edgar with some urgent news about their living quarters. Arriving at the site, the team finds something completely unexpected, a nest containing 3 large lizard eggs. Sergio is shocked because unlike most monsters, it seems these lizard men actually lay physical eggs. Now pay attention, this one discovery is about to flip the entire world completely on its head. Back with the group, Roy Orlano orders them to treat the injured before moving forward. Ash pulls the Marquis aside to talk, returning the sword and thanking him for the weapon that saved his life. Roy praises the boy's skill, but Ash notices the captain was secretly clutching his chest in pain. He admits to a heart condition that occasionally leaves him completely unable to move. He tries to joke it off, but Ash isn't laughing as he sits down and takes a healing potion. Roy asks if he has a grudge against nobles, and Ash confirms his dark past. He warns that marriage proposals are coming, but Roy stops to confirm one very important detail with the boy. Looking him dead in the eye, Roy asks if he wants to be a noble or a hunter. Silence falls over the camp as Ash stares back at the Marquis, processing the heavy question. Ash says he truly understands the honor of the offer, but he reveals there is already a special woman in his life. He states he could never accept an arranged marriage, even after Roy mentions that the kingdom allows a man to have many wives at once. Thinking of Rafi, he makes it clear that he refuses to accept a marriage without love. The Marquis shifts his focus, asking if Ash would at least consider becoming a noble himself. You and I saw this coming, but seeing the Marquis actually respect his choice is rare. He refuses to let such a talent get crushed by court politics, offering him a special family crest dagger. This gift is a symbol that the boy now officially has the protection of House Orlano. Ash finally accepts, shaking hands and promising to live up to the massive expectations placed on his shoulders. Later on, the group descends the ancient stairs, finally reaching the 20th floor of the dungeon. They approach a massive door and step inside, finding themselves in a pitch-black room with no sky above. Scanning the walls, Ash spots a strange script that looks nothing like the languages he knows. A young scholar steps forward, her eyes lighting up as she begins to examine the mysterious wall. She identifies the writing as an ancient, rare script from the age of myths and forgotten gods. While taking notes, she explains this proves an ancient civilization existed here, though she cannot actually read the text. To the confusion of the group, she admits the language has never been deciphered. Ash asks if her interest in history is why she became a scholar, but suddenly, the very floor beneath her feet begins to crumble away. The ground vanishes, sending the terrified scholar tumbling down into a dark, bottomless hole. Frightened, she screams for them to wait, as Ash dives forward to shove her out of harm's way before it's too late. The two fall together, hitting the ground hard as the environment crumbles all around them. On the ground, he asks if she is okay, and after she thanks him, he calls to Ulka to say they survived the fall. Looking at the strange structures, he wonders if they are stuck between the dungeon floors. From above, a panicked Edgar shouts down, but the scholar is already distracted by a potential artifact. Edgar rappels down to join them, and together, the three of them stare at the massive, glowing structure they just found. Ash wonders if it is a magic tool, but the director realizes it is something else. Edgar activates the mechanism, causing the ground above them to shake with incredible force. And that is the cliffhanger you and I need to see what comes next. Alright, you and I are about to dive into a dungeon mystery that flips everything we know upside down. Ash hauls the scholar along, noting this place looks like some grand theater entrance. A massive panel sits before them, showing animal drawings and weird symbols that suddenly start moving the moment he touches the screen. He reaches out, realizing with total shock that his hand can pass right through the mysterious glowing display. Ulka finds the smiling animals creepy, while Ash asks if the light is coming from that box, prompting Edgar to explain how it works. He explains that this energy source is what finally powered up the lights for the floor. Looking totally determined, he declares that this investigation has finally proven his massive theory to be true. He drops a bombshell: dungeons aren't natural. He shouts that these are actually man-made facilities built by a long-lost ancient civilization. He thinks back to the old tales, where gods and their servants supposedly built the world in total peace. But then, a massive monster appeared out of nowhere, a total calamity that threatened to destroy everything. The servants fought back with magic swords but failed, leaving the gods and their allies no choice but to sacrifice their lives to seal the evil away. They used every bit of their power, turning into sparkling particles of light that rained down across the earth. It was from those very particles of light that the first human beings were finally born to inhabit this world. The scholar wraps up the origin story of humanity, while Ash claps his hands, recognizing it as a legendary fairy tale told all across the continent. Sir Edgar gets serious, flat out admitting he doesn't believe in the gods at all. He asks why an all-powerful creator would ever need to die just to stop some random monster or calamity. He claims the story is just propaganda from the Church of the Divine, and Ash is stunned, repeating the name of that powerful church in shock. As the official religion of the Kingdom of Arlon, the church holds massive power all across the northern lands. Edgar explains how they twisted ancient legends to fit their own rules, but Ulka notes that those magic swords from the myth are actually real. Edgar agrees, noting that plenty of things in reality match up with those ancient legends. He shares his theory an advanced civilization definitely existed, but they weren't divine beings at all. He concludes the ancients were likely just humans like them, not gods, leaving Ash and Ulrika totally stunned by a possibility they'd never even considered. But Edgar warns them it's still just a hypothesis, though it's the main focus of all his current research. Sergio suddenly cuts in, shouting at them to drop this dangerous topic before things get crazy. Edgar stays unfazed, asking what happened, while Ulka just sighs. He then steers them back, asking what the true nature of a dungeon actually is. Based on his theory, he's convinced this whole place is just some massive ancient facility. Comparing it to a granary, he explains that monster labyrinths can be built too. Pointing at a door, he says the logic is the same. Vowing to prove it, he watches Roy approach a newly discovered door. Roy steps inside, wondering what kind of strange room this could be. Now pay attention, because we're about to see if his crazy theory actually holds water. A hand presses a button, activating the mechanism inside the small room. Suddenly, the door slams shut, leaving Ash and Ulka stuck outside. Ash tries to force the door, but it's locked tight. Then, the entire room suddenly starts moving up, throwing Ash and Ulka onto the floor. Right at that moment, a light on the wall flickers to life, changing color as the mechanism fully activates. When the door slides open again, they're suddenly standing in front of a completely different hallway. To their absolute shock, a group of royal knights is standing right there in front of them. Ash looks around, finally realizing this place is definitely man-made. He shouts that they've traveled 3 whole floors down, leaving Ulka in a state of total disbelief. With a smug smile, Sir Edgar confirms his theory was right. Roy finally understands the ancients could travel between these dungeon floors with total ease. Because of this, Edgar is certain these dungeons were built for a very specific purpose. Ash and Ulka wonder what the secret purpose could be, but you and I are stuck for now because even Edgar admits he has no clue. Roy turns to Edgar, demanding to know if he already knew this room was actually an elevator. Still looking calm, Edgar admits he had no clue. Roy grabs him by the shoulders, screaming at him for being so incredibly reckless with their lives. He rants that Edgar's curiosity always puts them in danger, which just makes the director burst out laughing. Suddenly, the elevator doors slide open for Ash and Ulrika. They step out, finally regrouping with the rest of their party on the 20th floor. Sergio walks over and scolds Edgar for vanishing without telling a single person. Looking at the door, Ulka notes that this elevator will make their research way easier. Bale agrees, saying they might finally solve the dungeon's mysteries very soon. Bale asks what's wrong. We're about to find out. Alright, you and I are diving back in as Bale points out a hidden staircase that just appeared out of nowhere. He tells them the wall literally split open, revealing a path downward. Ash wants to take the elevator, but Edgar shuts that down. Apparently, the 3rd button is totally dead and won't respond to any commands. His theory is simple, the artifact just can't send power down to the lower levels. Bale decides they have to hike down themselves. He turns to Ash with a grim warning, this journey is far from over. Ash gets the message. The monsters waiting below are going to be way more dangerous. By the next morning, Ash and Ulka realize the lizardmen are gone. Talon notes that these monsters should have respawned ages ago. Ash stays silent, lost in thought, while Kyle and Tanya scout the empty area. Flashback to last night, Sir Edgar sent a request to their camp. He wanted Ash to investigate the lizardmen near the 19th floor. His hunch was dead on. The monsters aren't respawning like they usually do. Back in the present, Ash is still piecing it together. Kyle suggests they push on to the 18th floor to see more. When they reach the floor below, it's a ghost town. Not a single monster in sight. Ash tells Talon this is a first, but wait for it on the 17th floor. A massive beast lunges at them. Ash blocks the heavy strike, realizing the monsters here have already started their respawn cycle. With zero hesitation, he drives his blade deep into the beast's chest. Nearby, a hunter yells that they got way too careless. As the monster roars, another hunter warns that it is calling in for reinforcements right now. Ash shouts that they have seen enough and orders a full retreat. Back on the 20th floor, he reports the lack of respawns. After hearing the news, Sir Edgar goes quiet, processing this strange new information. Edgar just pats his back and says good job. Ash is surprised that was way shorter than his usual long-winded speeches. Talking with Roy, Sir Edgar agrees to wrap up the entire investigation right then and there. Roy bellows the announcement that the mission is officially over. Everyone at the dungeon entrance gets thanked for their hard work. As they finally head out, Ash is just relieved they all made it back in one piece. Roy Orlano walks up and tells Ash he did fantastic. He has to head back, so he says his goodbyes farewell, for now. Ash wishes him a safe journey home as the two of them share a final handshake. He tells Ulka it is time for them to head home too. Meanwhile, Edgar asks how the ancient script transcription is coming along. He says they are leaving once the job is done. The scholar looks satisfied and announces she finally finished copying the text. She turns to leave, walking away from that massive, glowing panel behind her. Okay, check this out. The panel starts flickering with an error message. It is warning about a power overload and a system mutation. Cut to the first dungeon, where Murray is facing off against a bizarre mechanical giant. She leaps high into the air, leveling her spear for a devastating blow. With perfect precision, she hammers the monster's head with everything. The impact absolutely shatters the robot's head. Once the dust settles, she stands tall among the smoking wreckage. Murray starts wondering exactly how much gold all this scrap metal is going to fetch her. Back in the city, she heads into the guild hall. The receptionists at the counter greet her, complimenting her on a hard day's work. They ask about her haul, and Mireille just beams it was a very good day. She shows off 2 bags stuffed with loot from the 4th floor. Suddenly, 2 guys approach her, and she asks them what they want. One of them calls her name and invites her to hit the town for a few drinks. She thinks it over, remembering she needs to find Ash soon. Still, life in the dungeon city is actually starting to feel pretty good. The guy keeps pleading with her, telling her to just forget her worries and come out. Suddenly, the other man waves a newspaper to get everyone's attention. He asks if the Ash mentioned in the news is her friend. She grabs the paper to read it for herself and is absolutely floored by what she sees. The article is all about a hunter named Ash who dominated the dungeon investigation. Seeing his and Ulka's names confirms it. She looks furious as she realizes the two of them have been hiding out in the second dungeon city. Reading about their massive reward makes her blood boil. In a total rage, she stomps the floor, complaining about how much they made. With a look of pure determination, she announces that she is heading to the second city as well. The receptionist tries to stop her, but trust me, Mireille has already made up her mind she is going. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into the life of our favorite spear wielder, as the receptionist begs her to finish these jobs. Even the guys nearby are pleading for her to take the extra pay and stay. The receptionist practically demands that Mireille take the contract. Once she agrees, the receptionist celebrates, knowing things will finally get done. But Mireille just slams her spear down, warning that she is going to finish this whole mess at lightning speed. She heads up to the 5th floor, bracing for the brutal monsters waiting there. Suddenly, she spots a massive energy blast coming down the hall. Just past the dust, she finds a tiny child surrounded by monsters, crying for help. The poor kid is paralyzed with fear as the creatures close in. Mireille realizes something is off. Why is there a lone child in a place like this? Seeing those mechanical monsters crawling closer, the little girl starts screaming in pure terror. She throws her hands up, begging them to stay away. Suddenly, a massive bolt of electricity shoots from her palms, slamming directly into one of the creatures. Trust me, Mireille is stunned. Was that actually magic? The monster hit by the blast stops moving, completely fried by the spell. She notes that magic like this is unheard of in a dungeon, but the mystery has to wait. The downed monster and the rest of the pack are already starting to move again. As they swarm back in, the girl begs for anyone to save her. Without wasting a single second, Mireille prepares to dive into the fray and rescue the kid. With a massive leap, she hurls her spear straight at the lead monster. She shreds the first creature with a perfect strike before rushing past the girl. She does not stop there, charging straight into the rest of the mechanical horde. Her spear blurs, striking down another monster with effortless power. She spins her weapon, clearing every machine in her path. With one final acrobatic jump, she dodges an attack and lands protectively in front of the child. Mireille tells the girl to stay behind her as she takes a combat stance. More monsters are pouring in, and they are both bracing for the next wave. With fire in her eyes, Mireille charges the mechanical swarm once again. Her spear makes short work of the remaining machines. Watching the carnage, the girl is absolutely awestruck by the warrior's incredible strength and skill. Shouting that there is only one left, she preps her final strike. She puts everything into a final leaping blow that shatters the last machine. Once the dust settles, she turns back to the girl, catching her breath. Walking over, she asks what a kid is doing alone on such a dangerous floor. The child looks pained and stays silent for a long moment. Suddenly, she grabs Mireille's hands, breaking into tears while thanking her over and over. Back at the guild, Mireille demands to know how she ended up there. Was her party wiped out, or was she just betrayed and left for dead by her allies? The girl explains she became a hunter for one reason: to escape her family's control. She is from a big family in the capital with a super busy brother. Since he was always swamped with work, all the family leadership pressure was dumped onto her shoulders. To make matters worse, her family was forcing her into a political marriage. And yeah, I know what you were thinking. 16? I was just as shocked as Mireille when the girl revealed her real age. It turns out her magic stopped her growth at age 12. Plus, her intended fiancée was apparently some arrogant, older woman she could not stand. Slamming the table, she screams that she deserves to be happy, too. Mireille finally gets why she ran away. The girl just wanted to earn her own living as an independent hunter, away from the capital. Understanding the struggle, Mireille asks about her gear, armor, and dungeon supplies. The girl admits she was just going to drink water and wait for the inn's dinner. Mireille just flicks her forehead, scolding her for having such a reckless attitude. She warns her that the dungeon is no place for naive, unprepared people. Mireille tells her to just go home, questioning if she even has the heart for this. But the girl snaps back, refusing to ever return to that family. Grabbing her arm tightly, the girl starts explaining her true feelings. Then she shouts that she wants to be just as cool and powerful as Mireille. The sudden compliment leaves our tough warrior completely speechless. She confesses she was totally mesmerized by Mireille's incredible combat style. With pleading eyes, she asks to join Mireille's party. She promises to do anything, begging for just one chance to prove herself as a hunter. Feeling the pressure, Mireille has no clue how to deal with this kid. She just pulls her own hair, shouting in frustration at this insane and unexpected turn of events. Finally, she gives in, but warns that she is going to be a very strict teacher. The child celebrates with joy, while Mireille just looks worried about the future. They start with the basics names. Our protagonist introduces herself as Mireille, while the girl reveals her full name is Ren Albadine. With a heavy sigh, she says she is running late but will finally go see them. So, trust me, you and I are definitely going to want to see what happens next, as she shouts for Ash and Ulka, while Ash waits by the water. Alright, you and I are diving straight into the action as a ripple in the water signals something dangerous is closing in. Out of nowhere, a massive crocodile monster lunges from the depths right at Ash's face. This beast isn't playing around. He shouts a warning to Ulka. The wait is over, the predator has finally shown its ugly head. Ulka leaps into the air, driving an arrow deep into the monster's throat. But wait, 3 more are already flanking them. Ash parries a snapping jaw with a heavy strike before plunging his blade straight through the skull of another scaly attacker. Ulka warns him to watch his right side. Ash spins like a whirlwind, taking down the last 2 monsters in one clean swipe. They stand back to back, staying sharp even after the kill. With the immediate threat gone, Ash is already looking for the next target. 1 month later, they were back to their normal routine as professional hunters, grinding through the levels. The dungeon is packed with hunters from every city imaginable. Word of their successful investigation spread like wildfire, drawing crowds of new adventurers. Between the monster hunts, their sudden fame even forced them to sit through a bunch of boring interviews. Luckily, Orlano's dagger gave them enough status to turn down every annoying recruitment offer that came their way. Seeing that the local monsters have already been cleared out, Ash decides to head back. They call it quits for today on the 20th floor. Just as they turn to go, a familiar voice rings out. Ren Albadine walks up with a wide, friendly grin to greet the pair. They chat about how the monsters on these upper levels haven't even started respawning yet. Ash grumbles about only getting 4 kills all day, while Ulka mentions the scholars are also struggling to find anything new down here. She asks if it's scary, but Ren just laughs it off, saying the knights keep everyone safe. Ren mentions the deep floor investigation is starting soon. After a quick goodbye, Ash and Ulka finally head for the exit. Suddenly, the elevator lights start flickering in a way that feels totally wrong. As they step out, Ash tells Ulka how much he loves this shortcut. Only the investigation's top hunters get to use it. Next thing we know, they're strolling through the crowded, lively streets of the main city. A street vendor waves them down, and Ash tells him they're fresh from the dungeon. Another seller teases them about being inseparable. They're total celebrities now. Everyone knows their faces. At the guild, Ash tells May they've got some fresh loot to turn in, but not everyone's a fan. One hunter calls them lapdogs to the capital's nobles. Another group joins in, mocking how easy it is to get rich as a royal favorite. They try to recruit Ulka to their side, but she's seeing red. She's ready to brawl until Ash holds her back. Okay, you and I need to watch this part closely. The tension is about to explode as a familiar voice cuts through the noise. Tanya steps into the middle of the mess, jokingly asking if they're having a party without her. She vents about dealing with annoying pests herself. One guy snaps back, furious that she's calling him a small fry to his face. Tanya just smiles, asking if he's really brave enough to let her take him down right here. The idiot grabs her by the neck, daring her to try. Bad move, she tosses him over her shoulder like a sack of potatoes. He's eating dirt and can barely stand. His buddy rushes in for a revenge hit, but he gets slammed into the floor too. Before the guy can even blink, Tanya sends him flying with a vicious kick. Ash and Ulka try to stop the chaos, but Ulka can't resist landing a massive punch of her own on another jerk. Now let's pause for a second. You saw that too, right? Tanya and Ulka are absolutely loving this beatdown. The two of them deliver a synchronized double punch that levels the very last hunter standing. Ash just facepalms, wondering how he ended up with such a pair of legendary troublemakers. He's totally exhausted by them. As he's apologizing for the mess, May admits those guys had been causing problems for the guild, too. Ash asks if Tanya is being targeted, but she explains the whole team is dealing with this jealousy. It's a world of results, after all. Some people just have the talent, and it's eating the losers alive. Back in the dungeon, some thugs are throwing a fit about not being allowed to use the elevator. The guards tell them to take the stairs. Their leader is fuming, complaining that those with special training get all the perks while they rot. Nearby, Kyle and the knights prepare for their own descent. A frustrated hunter kicks a bucket, whining that no one respects their true power. But a mysterious foot stops the bucket cold, pulling everyone's focus toward the shadows. 2 hooded figures step into the light. They've got a dark proposal join them for a trip to the lower floors. That's where we leave it. You and I definitely need to see what happens next. Stick with me, you and I are about to see if this deal is worth it. Floor 20 groups get perks, so the main character, Ash, takes the offer. With a creepy smirk, the man accepts. The figures tell them to treat this like a binding contract, which never ends well in these stories. On floor 13, they spot a group of skeletal warriors closing in fast. Ash suggests a silent approach to catch them by surprise, but he is suddenly interrupted by a noisy group passing by. These guys rush past, diving headfirst toward the monsters without a single second thought. They scream that the loot is theirs and start attacking the skeletons without hesitation. Watching the chaos, Ash and Ulka are left wondering what to do next. Back at the guild, Ash grumbles about how these out-of-town hunters have absolutely zero manners. As they walk in, the place is buzzing with noise. A group of hunters is scrambling to put together a rescue mission. Seeing the commotion, Ash and Ulka wonder what is going on. They spot Talon and his partner and ask for the scoop. Turns out, a dead hunter was found on floor 14. Ash notes that this has been happening a lot, likely because newcomers keep underestimating the monsters on these floors. Now, watch closely, because what Talon shows them next is a total game changer. He says outsiders deserve what they get and shows a sketch. Ash looks at the sketches and realizes these are the same guys from yesterday. Talon confirms it. They were the same loudmouths who were causing a scene earlier at the guild. Ash remembers there were 4 of them, but only 2 bodies were found. He asks about the others, but they have not shown up yet. Something feels off to Ash, since the floor terrain should have left some kind of trace of the bodies. He tries not to overthink it while the other hunters comfort him. Ash and Ulka say their goodbyes before heading back. But before they go, May calls them over. She asks about the trouble they have had with other guilds and hunters. After hearing their answer, she says she has a solution. She announces they are getting special tags for exclusive hunters. Ash is confused, wondering how these are different from normal licenses. May explains that these tags serve as a very special form of identification. This makes it easier to reject unwanted invitations. But they need an interview right now. May tells them the branch chief is in the office at this very moment, which is a rare occurrence. Ulka thinks that is normal, but May says he rarely shows up. They agree and head inside the room. May knocks on the door and announces their arrival to the branch chief. They get permission to enter. As May opens the door, a woman greets them from inside the large office. She introduces herself as Aurora, the guild branch chief. She says it is a real pleasure to finally meet them both. Ash and Ulka greet her back, standing face to face with the famous branch chief. As head of the association, she is basically the most important figure in the city. Wait, pause for a second. She is so capable she rarely visits, but now she says an interview is not even needed. Suspicious, right? She says she has already heard all about Ash's accomplishments from Captain Bale. Ash asks why they were called here then. Aurora just smiles and says she wanted to meet such excellent hunters in person. Getting down to business, Aurora opens a box on her desk. Inside are their brand new identification tags. She explains that the gold tags are strictly for the exclusive elite hunters. The silver tags are for top hunters, but she says that capable warriors like them are truly rare. All that heavy praise makes Ash and Ulka feel a little bit awkward. She shakes their hands and says goodbye, leaving them both completely confused by the branch chief's mysterious and enigmatic farewell. They close the door and prepare to get back to their normal activities. Ulka gets a little jealous, mentioning how beautiful the chief was. Ash just tries to stay calm. He says his type is more cute and delicate. He stares at her for a moment before continuing to speak. Ulka cannot hide it. She turns completely bright red after that compliment. She turns to leave, saying that answer is fine for now. They head to floor 16. They find a vast desert with flying monsters. Ulka takes aim and fires an energy arrow at them. She hits them head-on, easily knocking the beasts out of the sky. Ash collects materials from the fallen monsters. Trust me, we need to see what happens next. Alright. You and I are diving into a mystery that is about to get real dark, real fast. Ash agrees, noting that stumbling over dead bodies is becoming a daily routine in the city lately. Ash hints there is more to it than just recklessness, and then he suddenly spots something truly shocking out in the desert sands. He shouts a warning as he spots a group of people collapsed on the ground far ahead of them. They sprint over to the spot, desperate to see if anyone is still alive and breathing. Ash confirms they are all dead. Looking closer, he realizes these were the very same men they fought earlier in the dungeon. The math just does not add up. These bodies were found miles away from the rest of their squad. Nothing about this dungeon makes sense. Cut to a few days later, Ash and Ulka are invited to dinner. Bale apologizes for the wait, but Ash cannot look away from Ulka's stunning white dress. One look at her and our main character is left totally lost for words. Ash tells her she looks incredible in that dress. She blushes, thanking him before adding that he looks quite handsome in his suit as well. They expected something casual, but this turns out to be a 5-star, high-class establishment. A butler leads them through the halls to their private room, but they are not prepared for who is waiting for them inside. Kyle and Aurora are already seated at the table, greeting them both with warm, welcoming smiles. Aurora hosted this herself, leaving Ash wondering why the branch chief is even attending this dinner. Then comes the bombshell. Bale introduces Aurora as his brand new fiancée to the group. Everything clicks. That is how Aurora knew so much about them already. Aurora jokes about being jealous of Ash. Bale laughs and calls for a special toast to start the meal. During dinner, Bale reveals the truth: he actually grew up in a local orphanage. Ash is stunned. Bale credits everything to Aurora's incredible talent and her connections with the nobility. Bale admits he was the one who finally popped the question to her. They are a perfect match. Ulka asks if the recent association drama is causing trouble for their work. Aurora admits she feels terrible about all the issues with the outside hunters. Ash agrees, noting that these dungeon deaths are beyond strange. He wonders why any veteran hunter would act so carelessly on the lower floors. Now, Watch Bale's expression here, because things are about to shift gears completely. He plans to double the guards. Afterward, he pulls Ash aside for a quick private chat. He has already contacted his favorite jeweler regarding the special request Ash made. Bale asks if Ash confirmed her ring size, while the girls complain about the two men whispering secrets in the middle of their meal. Aurora makes plans for a girls' day out with Ulka very soon. The next day, they head back down. Ash notes that the crowd on the third floor is growing larger by the minute. It is a full-on market down there, complete with food stalls and blacksmiths. Ash mentions the brothel rumors, earning him a sharp ear tug from Ulka. He explains that the researchers get the luxury treatment in those fancy inns. They descend to floor 9 and 10, encountering massive crowds and seeing many wounded hunters being carried out of the depths. On the 16th floor, they stumble upon yet another person lying motionless on the cold ground. You and I both knew this dungeon was dangerous, but this is clearly a cold-blooded murder. Ulka suspects a monster attack, but Ash notes the wound is far too precise. He spots a tiny needle prick on the neck. Something is very, very wrong here. A purple tongue confirms it. That chest wound? It was nothing more than a simple distraction. They regroup to discuss the terrifying possibility of a professional poisoning. It is the purple moonflower toxin. Kyle is impressed by his knowledge, but Ash simply says he has seen this before. Bale notes that specific flower is strictly prohibited throughout the kingdom. Ash drops the truth. This was no accident. It was a calculated murder. Tanya is furious, realizing a man-eater is likely hunting in the shadows. And trust me, you and I are about to see just how dangerous these man-eaters really are. Alright, you and I are diving right back into the mystery as Ash notices the deaths on the lower floors. He asks if the latest victim is truly the only one killed by this rumored man-eater. May admits they aren't sure since it could just be a sadistic killer. Ash agrees to look into it, giving Bale a chance to make a special request. With a dead serious look, he asks Ash and Ulka to patrol the dungeon. He explains the knights are spread thin right now. Bale adds that he trusts them both, promising the association will pay them a hefty reward. Ash just smiles, saying there is no reason to turn down a deal like that. Watching the meeting, Tanya, Kyle, and Talon look satisfied. Bale and May then thank Ash and Ulka for agreeing to help out with this dangerous investigation. Talon asks about the rules of engagement, wondering if they can just take the killer down. Looking worried, Bale warns they have no idea how many there are, or how strong. Sensing the gravity of the situation, the team prepares for the mission. Meanwhile, Ash reflects on the hunter-killer still on the loose. Later on, Ash realizes he has arrived at the jewelry store Bale recommended. Staring at the shop, he thinks it looks incredibly pricey. Stepping inside, he recalls the local tradition of gifting bracelets to your significant other. The saleswoman recognizes him immediately as Lord Ash when he approaches the counter. She guesses he's searching for a bracelet for a lady. He looks at the gems, finally deciding to confess to Ulka. When the saleswoman asks if the relationship is serious, Ash gets totally flustered. She shows him a ruby piece, explaining that it actually symbolizes marriage. Staring at the jewel, Ash turns beet red, completely stunned by the suggestion. After a moment, he decides to buy it anyway. Back at the dungeon, he and Ulka prep for patrol. Meeting up with the knights, he tells them he'll be joining the hunt today. Per Bale's request, they're working alongside the order. After the greetings, Ash asks if anything weird has happened in the dungeon today. The hunter says things seem normal, and Ash thanks him for the update. A knight notes that having Ash around is a huge help. Suddenly, they hear a noise and stop dead. Two hunters come sprinting toward them, desperately screaming for the knights to help them. As they get close, the hunter points ahead, trembling. He says the killer is murdering someone right in the hallway. The knight grabs him, demanding to know if the killer is still inside. Now, pay attention, because this is where the hunt begins, as they charge toward the indicated scene. Rounding the corner, they see a dark figure standing over a fallen body. Something gross is dripping from its mouth. It turns around, revealing a face that isn't even human anymore. Absolutely terrifying. Shocked by the gruesome sight, Ash freezes up, not knowing how to react. The man suddenly clutches his head and starts screaming in pure agony. He continues to writhe and scream while holding his head. Seeing this, the knight wonders what the hell is happening to him. Without warning, the man leaps forward and lunges at the knight. The knight barely parries the strike, but the raw power behind the blow sends him flying backward until he hits the ground hard. Ash yells out in horror. The man stops and glares at Ash, who is stunned by that strength. You and I both know he didn't look strong, yet he sent a knight flying. Screaming furiously, the man lunges at Ash. Ash barely manages to block it. Feeling the pressure, he wonders where this insane level of strength is coming from. As he defends, he notices the man's sword technique is a total mess. He just keeps attacking Ash wildly. Looking into his eyes, Ash realizes this guy has lost control. He dodges, leaping over the man with sword ready. Surprised, the man tries to follow the movement, but Ash slams a knee into his face. The man drops to the floor, out cold. Ash admits he has no clue what's going on. He watches with a confused face while the knights tie the guy up. They plan to take him back for questioning, but suddenly, the knight is startled by a noise from right behind them. The other hunter stands up, muttering that it wasn't his fault. Ash and the knight look on in dread. He starts clutching his head too, attacking Ash wildly. Ash blocks, realizing this guy is also out of control. And that's where we leave it as Ulka delivers a massive kick to the hunter's face. Wild, right? Let's dive into a mystery where nothing is what it seems, starting with this brutal, bone-shattering takedown. The next day, the captured man claims his memory is a total blank. Under pressure from the knight, he admits to entering the dungeon but swears in despair he'd never murder a friend of 10 years. Ash and Ulka watch the interrogation from the shadows while the knight informs Bale that absolutely no poison was found on either one of the suspects. Bale adds that the other suspect is also suffering from the same mysterious memory loss. Ash is completely lost, saying this makes no sense, while Ulka wonders why a killer is suddenly haunting the dungeon. Before now, they were only finding cold bodies the morning after the crimes took place. But since the knights arrived, suspects started appearing out of thin air. Ash thinks the culprit actually wants these crimes to be seen. Bale then theorizes that some mastermind is likely driving other hunters insane and using them like puppets. Ash notes how elaborate the plan is, and Bale reveals that the Rosebell kingdom is currently viewed as a threat by everyone. Ash asks if this is all just a plot to sabotage the kingdom's massive economic growth. Pointing at the map, Bale identifies Arlon as their biggest rival. They are a kingdom of divine faith that sees Rosebell as a sworn enemy. Stick with me here, because a single flower isn't nearly enough proof to link them to a neighboring kingdom. With a look of pure steel, Bale declares this is a calculated attack against the entire nation. Bale explains that while entries are managed, none of the suspects were ever officially registered. Ulka suggests the killer might have been hiding inside the dungeon, but Ash notes there's no record of that, making things even more complicated. Bale decides to call Marquis Orlano for help with the case. As the days pass, the investigation continues, but they are still stuck with zero concrete leads. While walking through the dungeon, Ash complains that they still haven't found a single clue about the killer. Suddenly, he spots a scantily clad woman approaching a hunter. She leans in close, offering him a very tempting deal inside the dungeon. Ash and Ulka move in to investigate. The woman shows them photos of the men who fought and were later discovered dead. She explains that those men were also approached by a strange duo while deep in the dungeon. According to her, it was a man and a woman, both extremely young and looking very suspicious. Ash and Ulka trade shocked looks. Now they finally have a lead. Bale realizes they've been blinded by a massive gap in their investigation. Records for hunters and workers from the pleasure districts are kept in two completely separate systems. Ash deduces that a skilled person could easily wear a disguise and pass for a hunter. Bale realizes they were stuck on the idea that the killer had to be a fighter. You and I saw that coming, right? With a determined expression, Bale prepares to put their next major plan into action. Outside, the knights take positions in the Southern District brothels. Bale explains that the dungeon prostitutes are all dispatched from this exact same area. A knight arrives with a report that all the troops are ready and waiting for orders. Bale orders the sweep to begin. Watching the chaos, Ulka wonders if they'll actually manage to catch the real culprit this time. With a thoughtful expression, Ash gets Ulka's attention to talk. He reminds her that the goal is to sabotage the dungeon. Ulka doesn't see how killing a few random hunters could ever cause that much damage. Ash agrees, questioning why the killer hasn't gone after any high-ranking targets yet. Suddenly, the truth hits him. He turns toward Ulka with a look of pure horror. He screams out the realization. The real targets aren't the hunters, it's the scholars. Explaining it to Ulka, he says that the scholars are the brain of the entire kingdom, but she reminds him they already have their own knight escorts for added protection. Ash realizes the dungeon crimes were just a diversion meant to lure them all away. This brothel search was exactly what the enemy wanted. He screams in desperation, realizing the entire district is nothing but a giant trap. Then, a massive explosion rocks the very heart of the city's southern district. Knights scramble to help the victims, but Ash yells at the top of his lungs that this is all just another big distraction. He tells Ulka they must reach the central district. As they run, she worries about Ren, but Ash vows to take them alive. He's certain of it now. The real objective is to kidnap the kingdom's scholars. As they sprint, he remembers those scholars hold every scrap of knowledge about the dungeons. Ulka knows that losing that information would be a fatal blow. Arriving at the scene, they find the inn door smashed open. They rush inside, fearing the worst, only to find several knights bleeding and unconscious on the floor. Trust me, it only gets wilder from here. Stick with me. Ash is terrified about what just happened to these scholars. A mysterious figure descends the stairs silently, while the scholars stand frozen in a haunting, total trance. Ash realizes they look exactly like those assassins from the dungeon. Now pay attention, a hooded figure spots them, while we see poor Ren unconscious on their back as they prepare for a battle. Ash and Ulka brace for impact, shouting for Ren and demanding to know what they plan to do with everyone. No more hiding, the figures pull back their hoods and reveal their true faces. The man suggests finishing off the survivors as Ash realizes these two are the true masterminds. Weapons in hand, Ash and Ulka warn the villains that they are not holding back. You and I both know that Smirk means something absolutely devastating is coming, as he promises to show them a real nightmare. Suddenly, a blast of energy fires off, hitting Ash with a blinding, intense flash of light. Paralyzed by the impact, he falls to his knees, desperately propping himself up to stay conscious. The man mocks him, asking about his magic, while Ash clutches his head in pure agony. Fighting through the pain, he checks on Ulka, who is trembling from the exact same attack. With a chilling gesture, the man beckons her to walk straight toward him. Ash screams for her, watching in horror as she walks toward the enemy while the man whispers a dark command directly to her. Ulka stays silent, standing like a statue while Ash desperately calls her name. Trust me. You and I are watching a total disaster as she draws her weapon to attack Ash.